that. Okay, it's just coming up to 2 p.m. on Sunday. I am full of lemsip. I have strep still in my mouth still at the moment, actually. And I'm also full of shakshuka, which we just had for lunch, which is absolutely gorgeous. It is a miserable, miserable Sunday. And hopefully you're all feeling well. I had to reinstall this entire laptop last night, so I'm after getting all the settings right again. And I think I'm streaming in 1080p, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just happy there's a picture on the screen, and hopefully you can all hear me well enough. So if you can't hear me or you can't see me, please leave a message in the comments down below as soon as you can. Be brilliant. Hopefully everybody's dropping in now at the moment. I see there's a load of you waiting to start the stream today. And I have to say hello to Paul McGann out there, who I know is already watching, probably lying up in his bed at the moment, having a little watch. We made a video the other day. It'll be out probably maybe sometime next week. It's myself and Paul take an Audi Q7 and we take a double axle caravan on a night away in a caravan site. It's funny. It is properly funny. But anyway, we try our best. Sorry, I'm not taking all the tea. I took all the tea on my wife there. She maybe just had Chuka and now she's not taking all her tea on her. But we can try. Good few things going on. I met some lovely people at the Ideal Home Show the other day who said hello at Newbie from the channel. I was in doing a bit of marketing for another group, which is quite nice. Greenfeet.ie if you ever want to know. Pretty good. What is shakshuka, says George Websdale. It is kind of a Middle Eastern, we call it Israeli Middle Eastern dish. It's basically passata with some herbs and spices and smoked paprika in it, and then you basically crack an egg into it and let it kind of cook like a poached egg inside that with some spinach, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Vegetarian, there's no meat in it, it's not vegan, obviously there's eggs in it, but it is absolutely gorgeous. If you ever want to try it, just look up shakshuka. You'll find it quick enough. There's loads of recipes on YouTube and Instagram. A few other shout outs as well. I met some other lovely people. There was 4 girls out running the other day, and I met them and they said they were watching the Sunday service. They don't watch anything else, just watch the Sunday service. It's deadly. The transmission might go out in 720p by the time you see it, but I'm actually transmitting in 1080p, which is why you can see more of the background, Boba Fett and things in the background, which is kind of weird. I don't know how I managed to do that. I don't even know how I managed to set this up. I had to install the whole laptop last night, so it was a bit crazy. Got a message the other day that said if this live stream is the largest live stream in Ireland any Sunday, so we beat radio stations and stuff as well, which is kind of cool. I'm on Instagram if anyone wants to find me there. I'm on Patreon, Twitter, PayPal, all the usual ways of getting in touch with me. It's absolutely brilliant to have you here. Hopefully you're all settling in. It's 14:01 now. We're all starting to settle into the stream and now at this stage. Another 2 hours of the Sunday service. Missed last week. I know you had pent up anguish. I missed out last week. I couldn't make it last week, and I'm sick this week. So I've had every kind of lemsip thing that I can possibly throw into my body to make myself feel better for the 2 hours. But it's fine to be in your company. It's fine. Already in the house, Andy McAfee was waiting there already. Someone was waiting for 2 hours ago actually, because I set up 2 hours ago. I see one waiting there. Jerry in Wicklow is there. Smurf 2106 is Adrian and Claire Morris has dropped in. Eric Watford is here as well. Niall Burke from Tipperary. Peter Hallas is getting 720 people is here as well. George Websdale is here. Deirdre Reynolds is joined us. Hi Bobby, beautiful pic of your kids visible on screen. Where's that? I don't see. Oh, over there in the corner, yeah, buried in the corner. Oh well, that's a few years ago, yeah. They're around. There's a whole wall of family stuff there on the wall actually. It's wider than it used to be. It goes out now this wide. It used to be this wide, so it's wider than it used to be. We've had some upgrades, which is pretty good. I'm just happy everything works. I can't believe I've set this up in one shot and it all actually works in one go. That's pretty good. But a few other bits and pieces going on. Car sales are still falling in Ireland at the moment, which is not good for anybody. It's not good for the consumer. It's not good for car sales companies. It's not good for anybody. It's very difficult to see where it's going to land at the moment, as people are just kind of holding off to see what's going to happen next, I think. And there's also a bit of problems with finance, house prices, general waiting list for everything. So people are having a problem with that. My Scala video, Skoda Scala, which went up 8 days ago, is about to pass 100,000 views, which is, I don't know what the hell happened there, but I did well. Was in early, I think. I was over in Croatia, reviewing over there. I think I built up to it kind of nicely. I did some social media stuff along attached to it. And then when I released the video, it seemed to trend really, really well, so I was quite happy with that. And it just seemed to have gone on. It'll pass 100,000 views probably tomorrow, maybe. I'm not sure. So if you haven't seen that, where have you been? You should watch that. And yesterday I put out a video of the mighty Ford Mustang, the Bullet version, 5-litre V8 version of it. Had that here for a weekend. Nearly broke me. I nearly had to take out a second mortgage for that one. That was expensive. It was good crack. New video planned with the lovely Sinead McCann will be coming up. We'll be filming that, I think, in June or July. I can't remember whether it's June or July, but we'll be filming that as well. We're going to be testing hybrids back to back, so a twin test from myself and Sinead over for Cars Ireland. And I think I'm doing a video about Cars Own as well. I'm not too sure about that one. And Mixed Garage want to get in touch with me too, which is another part. I don't know where that came from, but that's what's going on nowhere as well. So loads going on about video stuff. There's loads more videos coming out. But when it comes to car sales and car repairs, we're in problems. And we read about John Delaney spending €40,000 on a credit card. Belonged to the FAI this morning. I read that this morning. It was pretty interesting, alright. Instagram and Facebook are down at the moment, so if you can't get onto, well, they were down earlier on. If you can't get onto the Sunday Service community, then don't panic. It's Facebook is actually down, or Instagram. They were both down this morning, so everyone's over on Twitter, which is kind of interesting as well. Hopefully my plans, I see Pat O'Reilly has joined. Thanks Pat. My plans for today is to sit here and just be miserable for the next 2 hours while this cold wears off. It's man flu. Maybe it's Ebola. I'm not sure. I've one of them things. It's probably going to destroy me. This is just tea, but I had Lemsip earlier on. And my voice is very, very dark, very down. It's very low. It's croaky, actually. But I was at the Ideal Home Show, actually, the other day. I did a bit of marketing. I noticed that Skoda had their stand there. Citroën had their stand there as well. And Mitsubishi, first time I see Mitsubishi, the Ideal Home Show, were there too. They don't tend to put people on the stands who are actually working for the company. They tend to just put sort of people to give out leaflets and things, which is, that's okay, I suppose. But it was interesting to see what car companies are taking part in the Ideal Home Show versus the ones that are going to take part in there will be a car show later on this year. Someone asked me for my email address to get in touch about doing something at a car show in the RDS later on. Hopefully it's more than a dealer show. I think people are fairly fed up with going to car shows in Ireland and find out that you could see all the cars down in your local dealership. You know, you need something different. It has to be something else. When is the next recession, says Deirdre Reynolds. Next recession won't be a recession. We can predict them pretty well these days. We don't really have that kind of finance problem we had before, but what we do have right now is a sort of a financial bubble when it comes to car finance, as everybody's running for PCP. And then we're hiding those cars that are come back in other dealerships. So I see a couple of local dealerships who take in a lot of ex-PCP cars because they're just not worth what they were put up at on the forecourt. So they're giving out to another dealership at a different price. So there is an element of that. But I don't think we're going to have another recession. Not like the one from 2008. Not like that again. I don't think that's going to come. I think we're pretty stable at the moment. I think finance is pretty well taken care of. It's very hard for businesses to get finance now, so it was businesses that sank it the first time. So I don't know if that's going to play a factor in it. It is, of course, I know that's a religious thing, but Easter is here as well. In Ireland, we'd very much celebrate Easter. We celebrate Easter as rabbits and eggs and things, not Jesus on a cross. But anyway, we call it Easter here. It's just been called Easter forever. So whatever's called in your country, it is coming up over the next week or so. There's Mick Mulcahy has joined us. Niall McHugh has joined us. John. How did you manage to get a username John on its own? That's rare enough, I have to say, to get just a name on its own. Although I think you can have duplicate usernames on YouTube. I don't think you can have them on Twitter. I think your channel name goes up as a different thing entirely, mind you. Paul McGann should be joining us very shortly. Hopefully he may have already joined us from his laba, his bed, in the middle of it. There's another thing I'm trying to work out as well. Whenever I travel in different countries, so it could be anywhere, Croatia or France or Germany or Spain, whatever it is, I always try and learn some lingo. So at least I can say thank you, please, and maybe a cup of coffee or Americano or whatever it is that's the local language for asking for things. And I always try and do it. But in my own country, here in Ireland, I only speak English. And I only ever speak English to anyone. Because I was never really a native Irish speaker. But what I've tried to do, and we're trying to do with the kids here, is to start saying Gurv Magat when I'm leaving the pub or leaving the shop or leaving whatever it is and coming out of, to say Gurv Magat and Slán Abhaile or whatever it is, some Irish phrases. So if you can do the same, I think it would bring Irish back into mainstream language, because I find whenever I go overseas, I was in Greece with Land Rover recently. I had a brilliant trip, but I was served in a restaurant by this young girl. She was lovely. She spoke absolutely perfect English with an American accent, and she's from Albania. So she spoke English, Albanian, Greek, and Italian. She's just a waitress in the bar. You come to Ireland here, and a little snot-nosed girl who can barely speak English will serve you, but she definitely won't speak Spanish to you or anything. So it's weird how it comes across that way. Anyway, what I'm trying to do is get my kids and myself to kind of make it more normal to speak Irish. So I'm not saying I'm good at it, I'm crap at it. Last time I did Irish, I was in primary school, I think, in any sort of major way. So, but I do understand phrases come back into my head, and I'm trying to use Duolingo as well, which would be pretty good. So if you can do the same thing, if you're a native Irish speaker, or you're an Irish speaker, or an Irish person, you grew up in the Irish schools or whatever it is, and you can speak, just start phrasing things. It becomes normal. Once it becomes normalised, we all start doing it. So it's pretty good. Deirdre says, deal with Bobby, which I think is goodbye. Is that goodbye or is that hello? Anyway, no, that's hello, yeah. And Kunasatatu, which means how are you? So a bit of Irish speaking there for you today. So I'm sure you'll enjoy that if you're from a different country. Pat O'Reilly says, he's in the process of finishing a nut and bolt refurb of a 1984 Land Rover 110. I bet you're finding the rust there every once in a while. Looking to put a sound system option. What would you suggest? Not looking to take up space with the box speakers help. So do you want a good sound system, or you just want to put a sound system of any kind into the thing? Because it's fairly handy to wire them yokes in. You literally just follow the wires through the doors. The wires that come from the doors that were there already. If they're not, you can actually drill holes in them. Pretty handy. You could easily put in any Sony sound system that would do it there. Sony is always reliable and will go into weird spaces. They make those very rectangular, straightforward ones that go in very easy to use. It's really easy to wire up a stereo, as long as you follow the fuses to where they should be, and you wire the stereo to a fuse, right? So don't wire it to some other fuse, wire it to an actual fuse. It's always best. I'm delighted that there's so many of you watching already. Could you hit the like button on your way in, please? It just tells YouTube what's going on and gives us more viewers here, which is good. So ask away all the questions you want. But if you're looking at this Land Rover one from Pat O'Reilly, a good sound system would put a subwoofer in the back of it. But then you probably don't want that. If you're keeping it traditional, you probably don't want that. A single speaker, double speaker in the doors, just trace the wires over. You could... Another good one would be, there's these box speakers. Who makes those ones? God, I can't remember who made them. Was it Value or someone made speakers that were square, kind of rectangular looking ones? They'll fit under the dashboard. Anyway, up underneath the dashboard, you can hide them away, and you can put the stereo into the glove box or somewhere. You know, you can put them anywhere. When they've never been there before, it's pretty easy. Or put a bracket around it. What do you think of Ford's decision to cut the Car Plus in their product line? Should never sold a bean, dude. It never took off for them. The car sells because it's a rental car, fleet car or whatever. So the car kind of sells that vein. But the Fiesta monstered the sales of the Car Plus. So unless it's substantially cheaper, it was never going to sell anyway. So Ford are cutting chunks out of their line the whole time. In the US, they're getting rid of Mondeo, they're getting rid of the Focus, they call it something else. So they're getting rid of cars out of line. They're going to concentrate entirely on trucks in the US, and I bet you that follows down here because Ford lack a bit of confidence. Still a family-run business. They still lack a bit of confidence in this country to really push anything other than traditional marketing on people. They just lack that sort of that get up and go of other companies. But anyway, and the cool factor doesn't quite work for them either. John says, Bob, now that the Grand Tour is basically dead and gone, it's not, they're going to try and take advantage with your mate. It's not gone. So they're going to concentrate entirely on specials. So the next series, I'm reliably informed by a producer who works for the Grand Tour, the next series will consist of them doing, like they were doing in this series, going to Colombia or going to America or whatever, and making like 6 to 8 or 10 or 12 shows, but they're only specials. So the tent, the studio audience, the track, the Ebola drome, and all that sort of stuff that they had invented along the way is gone. So they won't be doing that anymore, but they will be doing all the special stuff. So the Grand Tour will be back next year with another season. I don't foresee I don't think there'll be another season after that. I get the impression that James May and Clarkson are pretty tired of it. Not tired of it, but they're old. I mean, James May looks like an old woman whenever I see him in the videos. Sometimes sitting in the cars, he looks like a little old woman driving along. And Clarkson has some medical issues at the moment. He has all sorts of problems with him at the moment. He's only 59. He's like 10 years older than I am. He looks about 90. The two of them do, in fairness. Hammond is colouring his hair. He's happy enough to continue. He's not as old. He's only 49, I think. And so he's doing okay for himself. But I don't foresee a good future. And I also think that like Top Gear has dragged the whole lot under. They struggle with the format of Top Gear. So I just think that that's going to die a death. Now, myself and Paul have plans to do all sorts of things. There was guys dropped into his shop yesterday to show him the Japanese cars. They want to do a Japanese series with us, so it'll be pretty cool. We have a couple of vintage car clubs want to do their thing, so we built a garage thing, and we have a set and a sort of studio with toolboxes and stuff as well. So all that takes a fortune of money though, so it's really hard to get a time. It takes a lot of time as well, so we'll get there. And we don't have the funding of BBC. There's no TV channel behind us, so it's coming out of our own pocket as much as we can. On that note, if you want to support the channel, it'd be really good. It goes into funding the garage as well. If you look at the links, scroll into the comments there, and you'll see in the links there's a link for PayPal and Patreon, which you can do there, or you can do Super Chat right here on YouTube, should you wish. Super Chat is just as good. It's really good, actually. It just goes into the normal funds that come in from the advertising, which isn't much from YouTube, I promise. It really isn't a whole lot of money. The Scrub On has come in. He passed the new Renault on the M50 the other day when you're going to review RS Megane. Renault have not given me a lend of the RS Megane. They have given me a lend of Megane, but not the RS Megane. Maybe they feel I'm not good enough for it. Maybe they don't think I'll be able to drive it. Maybe they don't think this channel is important enough. Whatever. It doesn't really bother me one way or the other. It's entirely up to them. It's just a switch they click on and off as they please. Should they not wish to provide an RS Megane, that's okay. It just won't get reviewed here. That's how it works. But I have not driven it. Well, actually, I did have a sneaky spin of it one day, but it was not to do with a pure test of it. It's not what the old RS Megane used to be. I'll put it that way. I think the older one. There is a review on my channel of RS Megane, and that was the best one. Still is. Bob, the Land Rover hasn't got door cars, alone speaker space. Anyway, feels aggressive for both on and off road. My God, yeah, you're going to have to do. You're going to have to build a little box. You can, easy enough. They're not that hard. You bend some metal around to the shape of the stereo and screw it to the dashboard. It's a difficult thing. You're going to have to make actual drill holes, so that's a bit of a problem. Jim Smith is in the house. Piston Geeks is in the house. Good man. Peter Doyle hyphen Kilkenny. Do you ever test car sound systems? I heard Mercedes Burnster is the best out there. I do in my own head when I'm playing the thing, but it's impossible to capture it on, like you're using a mic to record a stereo to play it out through the tinny speakers on the laptop. It just doesn't work out, so you never get the audio from it. The one I've seen that's the best one, or one I listened to is the best one I've noticed so far is the Bose system. I think it's in Audis. Mercedes do a really good one. The problem I find for Mercedes is they add a little bit too much bass. So if you're listening to music all the time in a car, that's okay. But if you ever want to listen to radio, or you want to listen to the spoken voice, you need to drop the bass off and bring up the treble. Human voice is much more trebly when it's been spoken to, apart from me today, which I am very bassy today. But so if you have bass speakers, you will get quite a thrill from my voice today. But for the most part, the stereo systems require either bass or treble. So depending on what you're looking for, if you're going to listen to mostly spoken voice, you drop the treble or drop the bass and bring up the treble, and you should be sorted on that, or bring up the other end of the megahertz scale. That pen in my hand, by the way, is Audi. It's my favourite pen in the entire world. It's got a little grill on the front of it. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But it's a lovely little thing. Got it in the Audi R8 launch, which I presume has something to do with the R8. Claudio says, Mulțumesc, thank you in Romanian. Mulțumesc. There you are. You see, there's a bit of Romanian for you now. You see, we're educational here. We try to do our best. Garv Magot, that is in Irish, is what the Irish version is. Thank you very much, what that literally means. But it's generally that for any kind of, so even thanks is still Garv Magot. After everybody, Bob, Croatian cats really like you. That is true, yes. And in the video, at the very end of that video from the Skoda launch, The cat was round. That cat never left me alone. That cat is in more video than I actually showed. There were bits of it I couldn't actually film at one point because the cat just kept running around my feet as I was walking around. So it took a bit of effort to get rid of the cat, but the cat was fun. They were there when I pulled up little boats, beautiful area. I still remember Spit. It was such a lovely little place. I don't know what the people, I didn't see a lot of the people, other than people in the restaurant and the hotel and things. I didn't really get to see a lot of the individuals that were there, but they all seemed very straightforward and very nice. I really appreciated Croatia. Quite nice. Next trip coming up, I think we're going to Morocco in a couple of weeks' time. Down to the Ford Raptor in the Northern Sahara, as far as I know. I don't know, I have no details on that one yet. I know it's a Raptor and I know it's Morocco. Other than that, I'm not quite sure. And then we're going to do a really cool trip with Mini. We're going over to Heathrow. We're going to go to Oxford, pick up a Mini 60th anniversary. We're coming to Liverpool, where everybody's basically Irish or has Irish relatives. And then we're taking a ferry to Dublin. So that should be a good crack. If you see a little fleet of Minis zooming around the road next month, it'll probably be me. Jeff says, I got a new car battery, a Bosch S4. What brands are best? Bosch are really good on batteries. Trust me, by the way, if you're even remotely considering buying a battery, spend a wedge, get the good batteries. The electricity really does play a havoc with a car if it's a bad battery and doesn't do its charge properly or doesn't discharge properly. Remember, a battery's job is actually to discharge correctly. So the idea is that the battery discharges properly when the lights are turned on and the alternator gets all the power it needs, and everything you turn on the car, air conditioning, is all drawn from the battery, and then the alternator charges the battery back up again. That's the plan. So the battery should be able to discharge nicely, and a good battery should, even from flat, should recover if left alone. Believe it or not, they're not that hard to charge up, but do spend the money. Bosch make a great range of batteries, really tough ones. There's any amount of battery makers. European battery makers were always counted among the best ones in the world. So Bosch would be number one up there. Probably number one, number two, somewhere in that region. There's another crowd. Valeo make them as well. Continental make batteries, but I don't think they make them. I think they buy them in from someone else. There's another crowd called Tough. It's like a bull. Is it bull? What's that called? It's a bull standing with its arms stretched. I can see the image, but I can't see what it's called. It's funny, but I can see in my head and I can't do it. But definitely spend the money on car batteries. Don't scrimp on those. Don't buy the cheapest ones. Don't buy recycled ones. They are not worth your while. You can fix old kind of batteries. Basically, inside of a battery is a metal plate. It's filled up with deionized water, which is water that has all the ions removed from it. Also called ironing water, if you ever see it in the shop. It's just deionized water. So what happens is the little ions that are inside, when it's given electricity, the little ions hop off the little steel plate and they energize, so they go wild inside the battery and they create electricity passing through those plates. But over time, some of those ions begin to stick to the plate. So the plate becomes kind of coated in ions, and then it starts to lose its charge. You used to be able to unscrew the top of a battery, and then you dump out the deionized water, and you buy a little bottle of deionized water, you fill it back up, and you get a new battery. And it was literally that easy. That's the way it used to be. These days, they're all sealed units. They don't want you touching any of that. They're actually hard units inside. There's no liquids in them anymore. There's all kinds of things going on now. With lithium ion, which changes how batteries operate, but that was the old way of doing batteries, which is brilliant, and I loved it. But that was just me. I'm just such an old fuddy-duddy these days. Scrobon says, did you watch the last episode of Grand Tour? I did last night. I did actually sat down and watch the whole hour of it. They were crying and everything at the end of it. The lads are Marmite, but it was pretty emotional. It was. I have 17 years they're doing that, and I have watched every single episode of Top Gear, and not quite every single episode of the Grand Tour. I think season 2 lost me, but I've definitely watched every episode of season 3, and I've watched every episode of the original Top Gear, and it was a little bit heartbreaking even for me to look down, because the reason I'm here doing what I do is because they did what they did to create that video, that feeling of cars in film. And that's the reason that I'm here, is the love affair I have with cars. It goes back way before Top Gear, way before Clarkson's Top Gear, to the older Top Gear even. But for the last 17 years it has been Clarkson, Hammond, and then May is 16 years, doing it was a year late. But it was a little bit emotional for them, and definitely when I was looking at it last night going, it's a shame that's not Top Gear, that's not the final episode. Anyways, Top Gear ended badly, but and Top Gear's over, lads. I don't foresee any future whatsoever for Top Gear anymore, unfortunately. Not for us. I think it will be for people to laugh at out there, and for fun and games, and for a cricket player and some dude off of a dating show to go and to it. Anyway, we'll see what it turns out to be. But it was pretty emotional for me, yes. Ace in the Deck says, hello Bob from Dublin 9. I passed my driving test in November. Looking for first time cheaper car. What do you suggest? I'm looking at a Fiesta or an i10 or i20, Kia, etc. For first car, first of all, unless you're brilliant at driving, unless you pass your test first time and you're absolutely done the advanced driving course, jeez, I can do a J turn in the morning, no problem. Buy the cheapest thing you can possibly afford, right? Because you are, and you may just get this over here, get it over it, you're going to crash. So everybody crashes. It's probably going to be just a little minor ding, but at some point or another, you're going to have that sickening feeling down your stomach that you just rear-ended something, or you reversed into a wall. So Fiesta's really good if you can get like a 1 litre, 1.2 Fiesta, 1 litre probably for your insurance. Hyundai i10 is very good. Kia Picanto is very good. Kia Picanto is a really stylish little car, especially with little alloys on it. It looks really well. Outside of that, Volkswagen Polo would be a fairly good bet. Just be very careful it's not an ex-rental or an English import or some other crazy nonsense. They do get that a lot, but it's a good little car. And a Seat Ibiza is a bit tinny, very light, very economical, and will come with very low insurance. So you've got a few in that bag, but definitely buy the cheapest thing you possibly can, and then just get all the practice you possibly can get out there. And see how you get on with it. And hopefully, best of luck, don't kill yourself. Tired or just fed up of watching Hammond crash? Yeah, at least Hammond has stopped cutting his teeth. He's cutting his hair instead of his teeth these days. But yeah, Hammond's crashes were all in the little roundup video that I did last night of what they've done over the last 17 years. It's only a tiny bit. Realistically, anything you do in cars and video will immediately be compared to Top Gear. It's not that long ago, and it still happens. When I go on radio, the first thing to do, and here's Ireland's answer to Jeremy Clarkson, blah, blah, blah. You get up every time, so you can't get away from it. So I've just learned to go, yeah, that's grand. That's okay. You can call me whatever the hell you like. It's fine. Scrabon says, I love the old RS265 some car. That's the one. I'm telling you, that's still the one. I wouldn't. The modern one is R265 light. You know, it's a little bit lighter, a little bit weird. Now I haven't tested it for a long test, and of course Renault Ireland has not done their thing and given me the car, so you know that's okay, that's alright, it's fine. I'll go off and test Audi R8s instead or something, you know, big performance £500,000 cars, but sure, Megane RS is not good enough. Yeah. Deirdre Reynolds, is there any car out there that has air purify system to dispel the smell of farts in the car? It's quite embarrassing being in the car wondering who farted. Generally, if it's you and you can smell a fart, you've done it yourself. If the person sitting beside you has done it and you didn't realise you didn't fart, then it's obviously them. The best thing to do is just say it. Just say it out loud. I farted. That's it. Then it's all out in the open. Everybody knows. Just open a window and let it happen. In answer to the question, for internals, for air inside the car, there isn't. There was only Tesla's HEPA filter, which Volvo have been doing for years, so it's still a HEPA filter. But that just filters the air from the outside, which takes the carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide out from outside coming into the car. But you have inside the car carbon monoxide, so you have to open the window and let it out, I'm afraid. John says, if you're after Fiesta, don't get a 1 litre, they feel so slow, build quality should be okay. Yeah, they're pretty good, not bad. Robert Van Sant is here. Bob, how's life? It's great. Love the Bullet Mustang review. Any news on a Mark 8 Golf? I've seen a few sneak views and test drives out and about. It looks foul. It does look foul, doesn't it? Yeah, I know. I saw it myself. It looks... Yeah. Now, I know we're looking at camouflaged ones. I've seen a few pictures of the camouflaged ones. I haven't seen anything uncamouflaged, and I haven't seen it in the metal. But the camouflage pictures I'm looking at are fairly ropey, and on the back of the car there's some painted on lights, so I'm not too sure what the back is actually going to look like. But it does look rather weird. But it's hard to judge. So what'll happen is they don't, of course, those spy shots are not taken by spies. They're taken by the car company, or they drive to places where they know the spy shots are always taken. So they look at the spy shots, then they look at the reaction to the spy shots, then they go, "Ooh, we made a mistake," and they'll change everything and they'll make it their own shape. So it should be okay. Volkswagen Golf has always been okay, apart from the big fat one in the middle. Everything else has been pretty much good with it. I can't imagine they're going to stray too far from the design they've got now. Scary bit would be to go left field and kill the sales of the car that is supporting the entire bleeding company. But then you never know with Volkswagen. honest to God, you never know. The way they're going crazy with their electric cars, you don't know what they're going to do with the Volkswagen Golf. So hopefully they won't go too far, and hopefully I'll be on the international trip of it, so I can actually see it for myself, because I really hate when they bring out something, they just let it loose and nothing happens. Don't forget to click the like button if you just landed here. You can support the channel on the PayPal and Patreon links down below. I know I always mention that, but it's very important because it does actually support the channel in a big way. You can also support the channel by clicking the super chat button if you want to do it right here on YouTube, or PayPal if you want to make a single donation, have done with it. And Patreon is drip feed, so any sort of a drip feed thing that goes on would be really good. Every single cent of it goes back in to make the channel bigger, better, faster, stronger, whatever it is that $6 million man does. And there's a lot of new equipment needed. I need to change cameras and things, but yeah, we'll see how that goes over time. But if you can, please do. If you can't, at least subscribe while you're here, and click the like button, which is deadly. Annie McAfee says speakers and mounted cab roof. This is for the Land Rover, to give you the most sound with the sound deadening pad stuck on roof first. The later Defender in dash speaker options are there too, but above to add to them. It's a good idea. The in-dash ones pointing downwards are a good space to add speakers, but not if you go wading. That's true, yeah. So watch your electrics if you're going to wade a car. Bob, which Lotus Elise would you recommend, S1 or S2? The S2 had better handling, flatter, better suspension, improved suspension, but a worse engine, weirdly. The S1 came with a better engine. Well, I think sort of a better sounding engine. You know what I mean? It sounded more visceral. Neither of them will drive very fast these days, I doubt. You're not going to be like caning it down some back road somewhere. But if you tend to take it on a track or something, the Mark II of the Lotus will be more reliable, but just a little bit slower, or feels slower. It doesn't feel quite as urgent. Your ass doesn't feel like it's scraping along the tarmac as you travel on the ground, for instance. Either car though is fantastic. The second Elise I think is slightly prettier, a little less punchy faced. And has better downforce, so you can actually go faster. But watch the price of the tyres on those. It does eat them, particularly rear tyres. It does eat them. Both models of it, they did both of them to it. And make sure you have a set of screwdrivers, because you're probably going to be working on it quite a bit there, Kenneth. But definitely, Lotus Elise, gorgeous car. You could drive it every day, in effect, if you're willing to put up with the seats that are in it. But they're both the same, so that's fine. But you'll enjoy it. No Grand Tour spoilers, please, says Andy McAfee. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, have we not all watched it at this stage? Seriously, like, gosh, it's on Amazon. Streams, like. Rusty Bunt. Banner, still, that's the one. Banner batteries, they're very good. There's a big bull thing in the front. The Banner batteries are actually okay. They're good. That's a pretty good brand. They do make their own batteries. Generally, what happens is you have a company who makes batteries, then they just get branded up all over the place. Various names go on top of them, but they're all basically the same. If you're going to get a battery for your car, buy a battery that's bigger than the battery you actually need. It doesn't matter. As long as it physically fits in the tray and the loops fit over the top of it properly. You know, so the actual holder that goes into can fit it. It doesn't really matter after that whether the battery is actually too strong. It only matters if it's too weak. Getting too much power won't matter. The alternator just deal with all that. But getting too little power and you will cause havoc on a cold, wet, windy November night when you're driving home and your lights go brown and everything goes wrong inside the car. So don't do that. Buy something that's a little bit too big, or buy exactly the right battery for one or the other. Just be careful that the terminals on top, some battery terminals are skinny and some are big, some are wide. Your cables in your battery will tell you one way or the other. But the best thing to do is bring the battery into a motor manufacturer's with you, the one from your car. Bring it in, stick it up on the counter. The lads will measure everything on it, make sure it all fits, and then it'll give you the biggest, most powerful battery they can find. Kevin McCarthy says, Bob, did you ever drive a Honda Integra Type R DC2 from the late 90s? I did. Fab car. Looks best. Gorgeous. Oh my God, it's such a pretty car. That was an incredible driver's car. I miss cars like that. Yeah, me too. But incredibly, bite the back of your hand. So pretty of a car. Now, they all got ruined by boy racers, most of them. When I say, I hate to use the word boy racers because it brings boys down, or lads down, you know, again, into being lads with a bunch of speed all the time. But what happened was, a lot of them are brought in as Jap imports and then just wrapped around poles or trees or broke down or revved so hard that they blew up or whatever. So there wasn't many of them left. But It is an absolutely phenomenal to look at car and a brilliant driver's car. Honda used to make outstandingly good driver's cars. Of course, when the VTEC came, you could rev to 9,000 in a bloody car. It was an amazing thing. Really enjoyed Hondas of years ago. Hondas these days just want to sell cars, of course. And so they look, I don't know if they're selling that many cars now, in fairness, but the Civic looks a bit weird and it doesn't quite have the same thing. We don't have an Integra to speak of yet that's going to be anything interesting, so it's a bit weird, you know. I have enough questions to answer now. There's an answer and then take questions. Aaron Bell, any thoughts on the old Fiat Panda? Not old, the first of the newer ones, looking nice and cheap at the insurance I'd like to. If you're looking at the one with squircles, which is the the last version that came out, the most modern of them is pretty good. If you look up another one, if you want something to collect at any point, look up a Fiat Panda 100 horsepower one. It's an older one, gorgeous. Now it's going to be expensive. I mean, the engine, it's 100 horsepower engines in it, but it's a phenomenal yacht to drive. Panda was the best car that Fiat ever made. They lived and died on the Fiat 500, but the Panda was absolutely head and shoulders a way better car. 5 doors, fit 4 people in it easy. An optional 5th seatbelt could be fit. It was an optional 5th seatbelt. It had a proper boot. The engines were simple, like 1 litre, 1.2. Then you had the diesel one as well. Gearbox was simple. You could work on the whole car from head to toe. Real easy thing to fix yourself as well. No problem running it at all. And yet they never really invested any effort into it. And when they did, it sold well. And it's still a car I enjoy. It's still a car I'd buy even here. For the last 2 generations, the oldest old one now will come with its own problem, but the newer ones will be fine. You know, no problem with those at all. Aaron Bell, go check one out for sure. Look for the one with the generation 1 of the one was called Squirkles. I can't remember the hell what there's a generation name for them, sure, out there somewhere. I don't know what it is though. Niall McHugh says the S2 Elise saw the introduction of Toyota engines over the Series 1 in the S1 were prone to head gasket failure. Had a spin in S1 many years ago. Absolute rocket ship. They are a great crack. Those old ones, see, had no insulation in them. So when you're sitting in the seat, you're sitting basically on the ground. So the cars, but you're basically scraping your ass cheeks along the ground. If you brake hard enough, you can get road rash in your bum. So it was good fun though. Great fun. The old Lotus cars are brilliant. They're just not reliable. I wish that's when they brought the Toyota engine, was fine. The engine was never the same, but when Toyota engines were okay, but the car would fall asunder around. Just watch for rust and stuff. But if you get a clean one and you rust coat the whole thing, you'll be fine. Brian Morrissey says, hi Bob, I'm looking at a full spec diesel Skoda Superb 0809. Any thoughts? Don't buy an ex-rental one, would be number 1, or a fleet one if you can manage it. If you can get a Skoda Superb that's in good shape, that wasn't a taxi, but in good shape, you should have no problems with it. Just make sure that you're getting a clean change to every gearbox. So every gear, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's clean. It should click in. There should be no grinding. There should be no kind of crunch sound to it at all. None of that should happen. And then you could be onto a winner with that one. The clutch should obviously engage halfway up. Is what you're really looking for. And once you get those 2 things together, you should have no problem with Skodas. I know that the older gearboxes did give it a little bit of problem. They dry out is the problem, and particularly around the gear stick. So you get that kind of grinding feeling, like you're grinding paste, you know, as you change gears. So if you're not getting any of that, you should have no problem. Just inspect the seats, make sure there's no tears or rips or anything weird like that. There's no water in the footwells, and that air conditioning works. That it does get cold when you press low, all that sort of stuff. They're the easy ones to look out for. So after that, it's just family history of the car. Where's it been? What's it done? Who bought it? Where did it come from? You want to know those sort of things. Last service times, service intervals, NCT. Usually, NCT is easy to pass, so you don't worry about that. It's not a great suggestion to go, well, if it's got an NCT, it'll be fine. It won't, you know. NCT doesn't test for a pile of things. It's easy to pass an NCT and not actually have done any work to your car at all. I do it nearly every year. Anyway, Ace of Deck says, thank you for the explanation. No problem at all. Anytime. Pat O'Reilly is thanking Andy. You know you were right, Bob, when he announced that as Ireland's answer to Jezza. I know, yeah. It was going on for ages. Every time I went on RTE, RTE2, And he does Today FM, and he then plays the same thing. And it's Ireland's answer to Jeremy Clarkson, Bob Flavin. And I go, I look nothing like Jeremy Clarkson. I don't talk like him. We have a very different opinion on some things. Brian O'Donnell's in the house. Come on, Brian. Mark Howells Prescott says, good afternoon, Bob. How's things over there? It's good, just raining, miserable, wet. But I'm feeling good because I'm high on Lemsip and Strepsils, which is pretty good. I'm in Sri Lanka with my elderly aunt. Sri Lanka, that sounds nice. First, must be good weather over there. My elderly aunt and uncle. When will the review on the Peugeot Rifter become live? Best regards, Mark. There'll be a couple of weeks yet, Mark. I think there's so many other little ones ahead of that I'm trying to get out. Over the next week, I already put out 3 videos, maybe next 2 or 3 videos next week. And then Rifter will come in at the back end of that. Next week I'm picking up the Jaguar I-Pace. So if anybody's any questions on electric Jaguars, I'll be having that for a few days. And the Peugeot 508. And then there's some launch I have to go to tomorrow. I forget what the launch is. The Mercedes being launched tomorrow, which I must find out what that actually is. I just have it down as a Mercedes press launch, so I don't know what the car is. The Mercedes being launched tomorrow. And it's just here in Dublin. And the Peugeot 508 and the Jaguar I-Pace. I-Pace will be first, so I'm going to get that for first half of the week. Have a play, see how it charges up and how fast it is, and then we get over it. There's Paul McCann in the comments. Hi Bob, get well soon. Thanks Paul, you're very good. Hope you're watching. Love you too. Bye. Matt Byrne. Hey Bob, over the years I've always used Honest John to get an idea of the pros and cons of a car. Are there any better views sites or even any Irish ones? There is an Irish equivalent of Honest John, and that's probably what the topic is today. Who gives the best car advice? It's not putting me forward or Scotty Kilner or any of those people. I'm not putting them forward particularly, but what you look out for in a car review, which is different than a car opinion, right? So if a car reviewer gives an opinion, in other words, a car reviewer says, I like this car because, or this is a very poor gearbox because, that's an opinion from a car reviewer. And generally speaking, when there's an opinion, you can trust them a little bit more than someone who has no opinion. So if it's just, we drove a car from A to B Wednesday, and then on Thursday we went here, and then Friday we went there, and then, the car is 30 grand and is available in their dealership. That's not a review. There's no opinion in that. See, I don't trust those kind of ones, because a lot of them, because I know most of the PR people who work for car companies, not just in Ireland, internationally, and almost all of them used to be journalists. And the reason why journalists like me get picked up very quickly by car companies is because we can write. Which means when we write a press release, we can actually write it like an article. And so it gets sent out, and some of those press releases get copy and pasted verbatim into articles. Not just online, but also in newspapers and in magazines and things. So if that's happening, it means that the opinion is not of the publication. So anyone who starts a review with we is usually a bad idea. I is a different story entirely. So we is like the royal we. It's like this magazine says this, right? So you kind of have to get it better in your head as to how it worked. Now, Honest John used to be good at it, but has lost their edges a little bit. And hats off. Every time I think of Honest John, I think of a man called, he had a Twitter account called Dear Blank. A motoring journalist who was a fella I'd met up and down many times on international trips. And then in January, we just came back off another trip, and he was going off on some other trip, and he committed suicide in England, in a hotel. Really did rock me to the core because he's such a nice chap. Anyway, he was on Twitter. So 3 years ago now at this stage. But it seems weird at this. I don't think of him. But it was a guy who did give opinion, worked for Honest John. And he did give his own opinion. So watch out for opinion when you're watching a car review. Scotty Kilmer wouldn't have experience, would be the thing, of new cars. So although he works on cars, he wouldn't necessarily be testing new cars like mine. Dolan Baker says, what are your thoughts on the life expectancy of EVs? Should they be expected to have a longer simply due to the fact that they are unlike ICE engines that don't become more polluting as they age? Well, ICE engines don't really become more polluting as they age either. When they're well maintained, the CO2 emissions actually stay just as low as they were when it started out. But failing that, I get what you mean. Where an electric engine has started off originally with 200 kilometers, and then in 10 years' time it can only do 150. Now that's a pain in the ass, to be honest with you, because that's just battery degradation over time. Batteries aren't cheap, and they're probably not going to get a whole lot more cheaper for replacement. So the problem is, when you buy a Generation 1 Nissan Leaf now, it might not go as far as it did when it started out. And that's right now. But that has improved over time. But the problem is, as we get more and more of these cars that come on that they can't go any further, how do we recycle them? We need a way to get rid of them out of the system. Old cars that won't work anymore are all recycled. We already have all the rules and regulations for them. All the systems are drained. They're all put into the recycling system. The engines are taken out. The bits are sold off. Scrap yards are there. It's all there already. But electric cars, we don't have any of that. There isn't a single recycled place in the whole country that could do that. So Deirdre Reynolds, I'll tell you, Andy, what I'll do is I'm just going to delete Deirdre Reynolds completely, because I seem to remember having a problem with Deirdre Reynolds last week. So I'm going to remove that entirely, and we're going to, sorry, we had a problem last week as well, the same thing. Just report that, because there we go. Okay, now we just get rid of that person. Deirdre Reynolds came on last week and did something similar to this sort of thing. So we want to get rid of that out of it altogether. Because it's no good. It's no good. We can't have to. We have to keep it all country. It's always nice. Everybody stay nice, and we all have a good time. But thank you, Andy McAfee, who is every week here is like a little defender with his armour on, his helmet on, ready to go, all trying to make sure that no one says anything stupid on the channel. People do, but it's okay. ICE engines don't pollute more as they age. Often they're kept going forever until they're recycled, and then we get a new one on the road. The biggest pollution we have is new cars. So the biggest pollution is the creation of new cars. So every time we change car into a new car, the creation of that car, whether it's ICE, whether it's electric, whatever it is, the plastics, the stuff that's used to make the car is the biggest polluter. Now, I've seen Land Rover, Range Rover, try to do a little change from that. They're trying to get a little bit more environmentally friendly. They're putting eucalyptus into their seats. They're putting not animal material in the car of any kind, and that's good. It's a nice step forward. Still, they're making a diesel engine. They're still making plastics and things. So I don't know if that works all the time. Pa Keane says, hello Bob, loving the show. I'm watching live from hospital in CUH Cork. If I win the Euro Millions, I get a Jaguar I-Pace for daily run around and Concept C2 1900 brake horsepower, seen as Geneva Mode 1900, bloody hell. 1900 brake horsepower. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine what it's like to put your foot down with that amount of power underneath your foot? That's crazy. Hopefully you're well, Pa Kane, and you're not feeling too sick and you won't be in there too long. I know it's Sunday, you probably wait to get discharged out of it, but hopefully you won't be in there too long and you get out and you'll be fit, well and healthy and keep on trucking on. But Jaguar I-Pace, yeah, I've had a drive it last year at the Irish Car of the Year refresh day. Seemed good, seemed okay. I'm seeing a lot of problems from other motoring journalists tell me that it won't charge at fast chargers, that it's doing something about resetting fast charger units. We'll see. I'll see. I'll have it for a few days. I'll give it a test. I've got fast charger units here. If I break it, I know there's something wrong with it, so it shouldn't happen. Brian Morrissey, always check the date of manufacture when buying a battery. Buy the newest. It makes a big difference. It does, yeah. Over time, a battery standing still on a shelf inside a shop for 2 years, slowly degrading, is never a good purchase. It's always going to cause you problems. Jared Hewitt, oh, good man, Jared. Good to see you on the channel. Good to have you here. Bye, Bob. If you were to invest in a couple of older cars, what would your top 5 be? Number 1 I would go for is a Mazda MX-5, an older generation one now, not generation 1 with the pop-up lights. It's pretty, it's collectible, it's troublesome. There's a good few problems with that one back there, and the older ones tend to be treated really harshly. And if you get a convertible one, the cloth, the rag top, always rots. Now, it does in all cars, but it always definitely will need replacement. About €900 to replace that little cloth top. It can be getting pretty expensive, and it's a bloody day's work as well. It's not easy to replace. Generation 2 had the oval shaped lights. That was the first of those ones. They were a lot less complicated and came with a 1.8 litre petrol engine as well, and it's absolutely gorgeous. The one to collect, if you can get a hold of one, and if you get a hold of a convertible one, or the dual roof one, you know, there's a hard top one that you can unclip and take off and put on a cloth top for summer. That's the collector's item. That's the holy grail for me. I'd love to collect that one. And I'd also collect an Alpha 147 estate, preferably. Absolutely bite the back of your hand, gorgeous. Crap, mostly, to drive. And the interior is rubbish. Like rubbish. The whole thing will just fall asunder around you. But the car itself, to look at, oh my God, the absolute pinnacle of design as far as I'm concerned. They were my number 1 and number 2. If I could throw in a Jaguar E-Type into that as well, I would. It's a lovely car. It's very nice. Looks well. That would be pretty good. What else would be there? One of the Porsches would be in there. Maybe one of the early 911s. Maybe. I don't know if I'd spend that kind of money. They're worth too much money. They just fetch too much money these days. And I'd love a Vauxhall Viva. Not a difficult car to find by any means, but it's my father's car. It's the one I remember him mostly. And even though he ended up in Renault 12s, a Renault 12 TL, he had 2 of them before he died. But Vauxhall Viva was the one that I remember most because it was crashed into twice while it was parked, not just once. Parked outside the front door of the house, and the drunk driver hit it one night while it was parked there. There was no one in it, and poleaxed the thing front and back, made bits of it. And my father still drove it on for another couple of weeks. But that's Vauxhall Viva is absolutely gorgeous. You can get a few of them overseas. There's actually a good few of them in Australia that were sold quite heavily. Andy McPhee says he had a wee Black Panda 3-door back in the 80s growing up. It was class. On the way home on a Sunday trip to Donegal, would sleep in the back seat, back down before the seatbelt started to become the norm. That's right. I was watching actually watching the Grand Tour last night. They showed an ad for a Ford, was it Capri? Not Capri. Ford Mondeo or something. I know, very old ad. They were showing a Cortina. And they had like 6 kids in the back of it. It was funny. They were just all piled into the back of it, all on top of one another. It was really good. That was common in the 80s. I can remember distinctly being in the back of a Mark I Ford Escort saloon that my father owned. And there was me, my 4 brothers in the back, and my mother and father in the front. I don't remember, the other 2 brothers were gone. There's 6 of us in total, but wherever they were, there was 4 of us in the back, and I was sitting on one of their knees in the middle to make room for the 4 of them. So there's 5 of us in the back, and then 2 in the front, and that was quite normal back then. We all survived pretty well, I have to say. Before, not saying you shouldn't wear a seatbelt, of course you wear a seatbelt, bloody hell, but we all survived. No problem at all, Brian. Thank you very much. Brian's just saying thanks there. Hang on, let's go scrolling back up here. Panda, there we are. 2008-2010 Scottish Superb's first green line was bulletproof 1.9 TDI. True, that's a good car actually. Not the later 1.6 TDI. It gets surprisingly good MPG. To get 1.9 would be ideal for longevity, yeah, and fuel economy. Never really liked the 1.6. I always thought it was underpowered. I always felt underpowered. The butcher is sick as well. He's in bed watching us. Is good old Sulfadine and me. I prefer Lemsip. I don't know why I prefer Lemsip. I just always had enjoyed Lemsip. Jose 9000 says, Bob, hi. On a new VW start-stop system, do I need to worry about the number of times I use it? Will it burn out in time? Any rules for using it if hitting traffic each day for 30 to 45 minutes approximately? Okay, so there's a couple of tests on this. One is, if it's a fairly modern Volkswagen, it's not using the starter motor to restart the car. It's a different thing. It's pausing the motor itself instead of actually starting the car. Still puts a strain on the car to start and stop it every time. My research suggests you save nothing in fuel unless it's stopped for 90 seconds. That's the only way it's actually going to save any fuel. Because every time you restart, you actually squirt a little bit more fuel in. You know what I mean? So every time it starts, it squirts more fuel. So you actually use more fuel by having stop-start running all the time, right? But if it's going to stop for 90 seconds and if it's going to cut your air conditioning out and stuff, you will save a tiny bit of fuel. But it's so minuscule. You actually just cut down on CO2 more than save any fuel from stop-start. So generally speaking, I leave it on because I'm just used to it. It's in every single car I've ever had, so I get used to the thing being there, and it's fine. It's okay, I can live with it. But none of those cars are mine. If it was my own car, I think I would probably get in, and the first thing I would do would be to turn it off and leave it off and just deal with it that way. Just for fuel saving reasons. If you're looking to cut down on CO2, then yes, turning off the engine will actually do that. But you do have a wonderful thing on the side of your steering column called a key. You could just turn it off yourself instead of using the system to do it for you. Anyway, Colin Higgins has also been gotten rid of as well. So there's a couple of people in there who are just nasty, I suppose. I don't know. I didn't actually see any of the comments. Annie McPhee is so good that it was caught before it got a chance to go anyway. Colin Higgins' account, which started to cock after the account kicked off. Okay, that's cool. Well, it's all taken care of now, so we just banned those accounts and we won't have them back on again. They'll have to create another account. It happens. People are weird. People think it's great to come along and interfere with other people's work or playtime, but this is our playtime. We all keep ourselves nice and calm in here and have a lovely 2 hours as it is. Actually, we just burned through 1 hour already, so we're doing pretty good. 1 hour has already gone by. I am having a chicken dinner this evening. I'm gone off vegetarian for today. Get some chicken into me, some protein into me, get rid of this cold. Get rid of the Ebola section that's on me right now. And I might have a little dram this evening as well later on. New video that's coming out very soon, that one from Paul McGann and myself, where we go to I can't remember the name of the place we went to now. We went to a place up in Dublin, which is a campsite just on the edge of the M7 there, near the Green Island Hotel. There's a campsite you can pull up, and we went in there with between the Audi Q7 and the trailer is 46 feet. Well, 47 of Paul's feet, 46 of my feet. So get that out there somewhere. John says, is there any whispered replacement for the Land Rover 90 or 110? Do you know what, John? I'll give you some really inside information. I'll probably be shot very right now. There'll be someone going to kick in my door because I talked to the chief designer of Land Rover, Range Rover Group, and yes, there will be a brand new Defender coming out very soon, and it will be a replacement for the 90 and the 110. Both of them are coming. He showed me what can best be described as a hand sketch of the car, and it looks like a Defender to me. I don't know why they stopped making it. It looks the same, but now that could be all wrong by the time it comes out. But according to the chief designer for Land Rover, who is his parents are Irish, lovely guy actually, cocky but lovely. There will be definitely. So now, John, you can hold your money. You'll see some. I'd say you'll see some drawings and probably the actual car in the flesh this year, with early release maybe next Geneva Motor Show, somewhere around there. As far as I know, they're already testing suspension and underpinning components here in Ireland, which there is Land Rover, Range Rover manufacturing goes on here in this country. Eric Roger says, best rule for stop start is switch it off as soon as you can, as soon as you get into the car. Really doesn't add to fuel economy and much smoother without it as well. That's true. I'd be kind of along that way. Get rid of it. Unless you're trying to, stop start slows down CO2. So for stop start system, it allows it to get a better WLTP score when it's there. So it doesn't really do a whole lot for fuel economy unless the car is switched off for 90 seconds or more. That was my thinking. So if I thought I was going to be stuck where I am for 90 seconds, then the stop start does work. If not, if it's going to be 2 seconds, don't worry about it. Turn it off. Colin Higgins says that Deirdre Reynolds is some wagon. That's a very Irish expression there, Colin. And I like it. I like that. Oh, I jump forward there again. Zdenko says, hi Bob, I understand the advantages of electric cars, but they are so much more expensive for the difference in price. I can drive an ICE car for a few years before I can feel the savings with electric drive. There will be two schools of thought in that one. I know if Cross 13 was here, we'd probably have a different story to it, but the problem is the price difference between the two is gigantic, and the great way of looking at that is to look at the Hyundai Kona. The 1.61 starts at about 26 grand. The electric one, if you take away all the discounts, all of the grants and things the government give you, the car is 49,000 euro. It's over twice the price of its equivalent petrol engine, and you don't really get a whole lot more equipment for that 49,000 euro than you do over the kind of entry one that you can get elsewhere. So you can get an automatic 1.6 petrol Hyundai Kona about 30 grand. So another 19,000 euro on top of that, which is basically the price of a Volkswagen Polo. You know, in just getting an electric car. So like you could get a 22 grand car and drive around for 3 or 4 years using the petrol and still not touch the price of a Hyundai Kona. So it's a difficult thing. And I think right now, because if you look at Tesla sales have dropped by 30% over time, and we expected that. we all knew, journalists all knew that was going to happen because everybody does. They got no new models, and deliveries are very slow. But what's happened is all of the early adopters for electric car have all bought. They're all done. That's they're finished. So the difficulty then is you've got to get new purchasers to come along and buy their cars, and then the problem there is, who's the new purchasers? Me? I'm not going to buy electric cars. Yeah, if I do, I'm going to buy an old one. I'm going to buy a used one. Just sit outside the door. I don't need one. So same as most of my neighbours here. If they're forced to buy an electric car, they'll buy something old. So where do you get the savings out of that, or where do you get the new car sales out of that? So there's your problem. The car companies are giving us too many choices. Now you have petrol, diesel, hybrid, and electric. And look at Toyota. Toyota don't have a diesel offering, and their car sales have suffered because of it. Ford don't have an electric offering, and their car sales have suffered the other way because of it, because they don't have a decent hybrid or electric version. So you've got all these problems that are there in the business end of things, as well as being other problems that are sitting there for the general public out there who just can't afford. Where's all the money come from for these new cars all the time? John M says, "Hi Bob, looking at a used car for pulling a caravan that isn't a diesel. Whoa. What are your thoughts on a 1.4 Astra petrol for under 10 grand? Depends on the caravan." So forgetting it's a caravan, probably even one of the smallest caravans you could buy is going to be 800 to 1,000 kgs. That's about a ton on top of the weight of the car. So an Astra is about 1,200 kgs, 1,300 kgs, so a little over a ton for an Astra. So that's about, give or take, 2.5 tons braking capacity of the car. So what you really have to do is find out the weight of your caravan, and then find out the braking capacity, not the towing capacity, the braking capacity of the car. So any car, a Micra, will get, look, you can push a caravan around with your hands, right? So any car will pull a caravan, but stopping the caravan is the biggest problem. So when you're trundling along a back road at 90 kilometers an hour and something happens and you have the brake hard, the problem is the weight forced forward of that caravan will have to be stopped as well. Now, over the years, a few good cars, it's generally diesel though. That's the thing about it, John. It's generally diesel cars do towing because of that turbo, that low down torque that a diesel car can put on to pull a caravan along, and it generally have bigger brakes as well. Astra 1.4 would probably pull it, might not stop it. That would be the biggest problem with that. Under 10 grand. Why don't you have a look at some of the older Skoda Octavias? There's a few of them around that would definitely pull a caravan, no problem at all. A couple of older Hyundais as well that are out there that'll do the same job. So there's a few cars around, but I think you should probably go for diesel. Just even for fuel economy, go with diesel. Because, I know you're probably thinking weighing off of the future and stuff, but there's no petrol out there going to replace the power of a diesel and be able to put up towing a caravan around place. It'd be a problem. Brian O'Donnell says, "I see a lot of Japanese import hybrids on Dundee like Camry and Honda Accord. Tons of them. I also see a disturbing amount of Honda, not Stream. What did I see this morning? It's got Fit or something. Fitness for Honda Fit. I don't know what the hell it was. Never seen the car before in my entire life. Saw it driving up the N7 today and go, my God, that is ferociously ugly. Which is a Jap import. We're back to importing cars from other countries. Japanese people drive on the same side of the road as us, so the cars are orientated the same way. It's right-hand drive, so they're easy import. Well, I won't say they're easy import, but they're, it's a straight import from over there. But there is quite a number of more imports coming in, so we're looking at other places now. Ireland is starting to look in places that aren't England anymore and aren't Northern Ireland and UK. We're looking elsewhere, further afield for our imports. I think we should just change sides of the road and have done with it. Start importing them straight in from France and Spain and stuff. It'd be great. It'd be lovely and dry. No rust on them, that's for sure. But I know it'd be chaos. But sure, that's just natural selection. People just die. Anyway, Mostly Mushroom says, "I remember sleeping on the rear parcel shelf as a kid." Yeah, me too. Rear parcel shelf of a Vauxhall Viva saloon. The parcel shelf was sitting, the bit where my father used to put his hat in that parcel shelf part. We used to lie in there and go sleep under remember the trees over the top of the cars. You go along at night time, the headlights would be lighting upwards, and you'd see the creepy sort of branches of the trees over the top of the the cars you drive along at night time is cool. Annie McAfee says, how come I can't see the timestamps? He didn't say that. But how come I can't see those timestamps on what questions? Anyway, maybe I'm up to date. Anyway. Annie McAfee says, beige lad of Samara, NI, to Cork, France, before advent of motorways. 4 kids squeezed in the back seat. Lap belt served too. Yeah, I know, it's good, isn't it? But see, nobody died back then. Some people did, but very few. Compared to today, but the problem is now with just so much traffic on the road, there's so much of it, and it's so much faster. My father would never drive above 55 miles per hour, my mother in the car. Nowadays, we drive up the motorway at least 120. At 120 kilometers an hour, you're traveling at 7 meters per second. Isn't that amazing? It takes you about 14 meters to even think about something happening in front of you. That's before you've touched a brake. You're talking about 2 full car lengths before you've registered that something needs to be stopped up ahead. So I saw a crash in the N7 today. Actually, we were up in Naas today, just briefly, for a little half an hour stint. But there was a crash on the motorway on the way back, which looked like that sort of thing. Yeah, so motorways have changed everything. It means you get there now, and mobile phones means you're under time pressure the whole time. You know, how long is it going to... I'm making good time, but I get there before time. You know, back then... My father, I remember we went to Mayo when I was younger. We drove all the way over. We went on holidays for 2 weeks in a place called Lewisburg in Mayo. And on the way back, my father stopped in 4 pubs and had pints on the way home. Just normal. I'm not saying he was probably a better driver, slightly drunk, than he was sober. Much more relaxed. He never crashed because he was drunk, right? He never crashed. But there was hardly any traffic on the road. That was the thing. Carnivore Bob is back. Yeah, I am kind of. No, not really. So we've cut down. I went completely vegetarian for 2 years or so, but I found because of the international trips, it's much harder to get food, particularly in places like Croatia or Greece, where it's a very heavy meat diet, and Germany, for God's sake, don't ask about vegetarian anything in Germany. If it's not the white dog shit sausage, or it's not the chorizo thing, they don't know about it. So what I've done is we've cut away meat. So we'll have chicken today. We won't have meat again for another 2 weeks. So we have meat every once in a while now, rather than being something that's common or in the house regularly. So, but yes, for today, because I fancy a bit of roast chicken, and it's the Easter thing, I feel the need for some meat and gravy and roast potatoes and mashed potatoes and maybe chips. You know, potatoes 4 or 5 different ways. It's an Irish thing. Annie McPhee says, Google new Defender to see the snaps of it driving about in the camo material all over for a rough shape. Yeah, extended service today, Bob. No, it's still only 15:05. It won't be over till 1600. It is between 2 and 4 p.m. GMT. Are we going to get rid of GMT, or have we gotten rid of GMT or something? Or someone said to me the other day we now have Central European time, which we always had Central European time. It was true France. But it was always an hour ahead, so we're an hour behind Central European time. It just confused people, so I didn't want to say that. So I always say 2 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Of course, England is not centre of the universe anymore. Shame that. Maminsk says, looking for a mid-2000s convertible as a summer fun car. Your thoughts on BMW Z4? Expensive, very good, but bloody expensive if something goes wrong, because there's nothing in it. Without a ramp, you're never going to be able to work on a Z4. I did this once. We looked underneath. You can just about get the oil filter off, and you might be able to take the battery out. And that's kind of as far as it goes. It's quite hard to work on an Z4, but when you get them working, and they're deadly to drive though, really good. Mazda Miata would be the one I pick out at. This 370Z is, if you can get a convertible one, great engine. God, that 3.7 is just a great engine. Burbles along, but it's a GT car. Unless it's going fast, it's not much fun. 350Z is much more fun, smaller engine in it. It's just a hooligan of a yoke to drive all the time. Good crack. But the Z4 is brilliant fun, looks great. I won't say a hairdresser's car, but it's a little bit. It had that tag with it at the time. But it's a great car to drive. But God, if anything goes wrong, it does get expensive real fast. Annie McPhee says, have you seen a cost of car battery that has a start-stop? Scary, and not that flaming things last long. That's true, yeah, because the battery has to do the starting for you the whole time, so it does hurt the battery over time. It does take a while to do it, but yeah, everything is expensive these days, unfortunately. There's no such thing as a cheap battery anymore, and if it is cheap, it's probably going to break your car. Luke Kremen, I've never seen that name before. Hi Luke. Hi Bob. My wife paid for a 7-seater Picasso by bank transfer from a garage on the Naas Road last week to be collected by me last Friday. However, when I went the guy said that it had been collected. What? Someone stole your car? Or your wife stole your car? That's complicated. Is that someone stole your car after it being paid for? Yeah. So on the Naas Road, who's the dealerships on the Naas Road? Just to see now, because Naas Road has a lot of dealerships, but there is a particular dealerships. Naas Road dealers. I don't normally do this, but this always annoys me when someone comes up with something wrong with their cars and then they can't figure it out. So Bill Griffin Motors would be the one that I would know on the Naas Road. Bill Griffin would be 100%. I have no problem with him at all. But there'd be a lot of stuff around him which would be relatively new that would come and go fly-by-nighty style. Not saying there's nothing wrong with them, but Bill Griffin would be the man who would know everything on that Naas Road. He's like the governor. He's been there forever, and he's been the one that everyone goes to for years and years and years. But if you've paid in full for a 7-seater Picasso by bank transfer, and the garage let that car out to somebody who was not the person who paid for it, then the garage is liable. You can sue the garage quite heavily, because they would have had to have proven who paid and who's liable to own the car, and could only give it out to an owner. So if they didn't give it out to your wife or you, then they're liable to find your car or to refund your money, one or the other. Now, it will probably take a court case. I hope you call the guards and reported all this sort of stuff, because then, a lot of times the guards don't get involved in this, but that's how you start making charges against somebody. Because the guards would have actually had to get involved in that. What would have written? There's more to this story. I shall scroll down. Luke Kremer says he wasn't helpful at all, and they have our money, but we have no car, and they are saying it's been collected. Just warning to anyone paying for a car in advance. Gardaí are saying it's a civil matter. It doesn't matter. Don't mind that civil matter. This is the way the Gardaí get out of everything. Everything's a civil matter when they feel like it, and it's a criminal matter when they feel like it, right? That they don't get involved in the civil. They do get involved in civil matters. You still report it to the Gardaí, so they still have to take a note of the date and the time it was reported, because that will be required by your solicitor. Your solicitor, which will cost you next to nothing to get. I'm talking about 150 quid. Pay the solicitor some money, get them to write them a solicitor's letter to explain the situation, that they gave out the keys and the car to somebody that it didn't belong to them, that they've just handed the car away to someone who didn't own it. Now, I fail to understand how someone could possibly pay money over to a garage by bank transfer, and the garage just gives the car out to a random person. This sounds insane by any standard. So definitely get a solicitor involved immediately and get that sorted out. Eric Rochford. Hang on, it jumped forward on me there. Had a start-stop on manual Superbs, no problem, but we'll have it with DSG now, and can be scary. Cutting out at below 20 km per hour. It drives me nuts as well. And not restarting quickly enough at junctions, not ideal. That's why I switched it off. It drives me absolutely mad that it cuts in at 20 to 15 kilometers an hour. Just as you're coasting up to a traffic lights, and suddenly the car just cuts out. Land Rover making a thing out of it, actually. It's coming on their next set of cars quite regularly. It's going to cut out at 24 or something. Sorry, need a drink there. I'm going to start coughing soon. I'm still alive though. I'm still here, still going. Okay, Andy McAfee says 1.4 Astra, 98 brake horsepower, 1020 kg brake towing capacity. The 87 brake horsepower rated to 850 kg brake. That's all they're allowed within their type approval. 1.6 petrol is 1020 kg as well. That's not much. Most caravans are heavier than that. 2 berth and 6 berth is like 3 tons. So you're gone. So a 4 berth, maybe 2 tons, maybe depending on its condition inside. 4 berth single axle one. Now double axles can only really be towed by big Jeeps, the big kind of like we did Paul's car, which is an Audi Q7. So anything less than that, and you're kind of at nothing with those with the size of the car. It's the physical size of the braking capacity of the car. It's not really down to what else it does. I still have emails running in the background for some reason. Don't forget, you can please, if you possibly can, support this channel. It's brilliant. There's a load of you watching right now. There are links for PayPal and Patreon, and of course you can use Super Chat right here on YouTube without actually leaving the platform at all. The links I have set up down below take you in a new window, so you're not going to miss anything by going here. You just click on the link and take you straight off to the new window. and it's a PayPal link directly. So any support you can give is always welcome, and it's really necessary. It keeps the channel going, and allows me to be able to say whatever I want, because none of the car companies pay to be here. There is no sponsored posts or none of that crap goes on here. None of the car companies are allowed to pay anything or take out advertising with me or anything else like that. So there. Although you can send me free stuff if you want. Not Garmin. Who's the other crowd? TomTom sent me a free sat-nav, which I might send back because it's no use to me whatsoever, because I use Google Maps, but not as good as Google Maps. But we'll see in the review. All they didn't want me to review is funny. They requested that I be positive about it. But I'm not going to be positive about it if it's no good. Don't send it. Like, if you don't want to review, don't send it. They still sent it, so we'll see how that turns out. I hope somebody's watching from TomTom, because your sat-nav is really, really good, but it just seems to be like, I have sat-nav on my phone, 2, 3, 4 of them on my phone. I don't think I need any more sat-navs. John M says, thanks Anthony McPhee. Cheers Bob. Do electric cars ever be able to pull a caravan as good as a diesel? They will. It's down to braking again. Electric cars have a lot of torque, so they can pull gigantic things behind them, but they can't stop them. It's still the same problem. Not so good at stopping. And in the range, of course, can you imagine towing a caravan from here to Wexford or something on an electric car and have to stop 3 times on the way down to get charged up? You don't do about 100 kilometers every time because the caravan weighs so much. Oh my god, there's so many questions. Ooh. Caravan may break up on re-entry though, that's true. It was 7seater.ie on Naas Road. Yes, court case being filed. That's crazy. We now have no car to transport our kids, no money. Lost €16,000 and we have to pay the loans. That's amazing. I know it's little help to you, Luke. I really would love to get involved. I just know where I can. You're doing all the right things to be involved with it right now. Shut the whole thing down, of course, and chase it up. But honestly, lesson learned for everyone out there. If you're thinking about buying a car and you're looking at a dealership, bricks and mortar or otherwise, please do your checks. Make sure they come recommended. Either your friends, your family, someone that you know, someone along the way that has dealt with them along the way, and you get your due diligence done on it, because you are handing over thousands and thousands in cash to someone you potentially don't know, even if they do have a dealership. But unfortunately, Luke is now in a serious situation of being stuck without a car and without the money to buy another one, because they've taken the money as well. So that's a very different story. I'll just see if I can find their website. Sorry, I'm being sneaky now. Just the journalist in me has come over all like, oh my god, could be a story I could possibly take up on. Yes, 7seater.ie, 7-seater specialists in Ireland. Of course, this is all allegedly. I don't know if any of this has happened. This is just a random internet person telling me what's going on. They have an internet address. And they have a mobile number, which is always a dead sign of distrust immediately when there's just a mobile number on the screen in front of you. And it's powered by Cars Ireland at the bottom, so I might actually have that checked out for you. You leave that with me, Luke, and I'll see if I can find it. Tell you what, if you send me an email, Luke Kremen, please, at bobflav@thenextgear.com, and we'll just have a little sniff about and see what else we can find out about those kind of people, because I may have some background interest on what they're able to do and what actually happened. But like I say, it's all allegedly. They might be the nicest people in the entire world and be able to do anything you want for you, but it just seems pretty random that a car gets sold off your forecourt that was just paid for. A civil matter in a person or professional motor vehicle without lawful owner's consent, I'd have thought that would be a criminal matter in any nation. Well, in fairness, if someone came to my dealership and took a car and drove off, and then someone else turned up later on and says, we paid you for a car, and it wasn't there, that would be theft. Someone has stolen a car off the forecourt, essentially, which would be criminal. That's criminally stealing something. So, had it looked at by a dealer, any updates applied, not much difference, doesn't bother me really, like putting on a seatbelt. Oh, sorry, that's something else. We now need a 7-seater under 2k as a deal with this matter. Any suggestions? Just get what you can find. Under 2k, there's not going to be a whole lot out there for that in 7 seats, and it's going to be ropey enough. You find something like a Fiat Multipla maybe, or an old Vauxhall Zafira, Opel Zafira 1, whatever you're going to call it. There will be something out there to suit your budget, but you'll have to root through the done deal, the back end of it there, so we're trying to find what you're looking for, unfortunately. Dominic Gavin says, Bob, have you ever seen a new Kuga? Looks good. Going to be made with hybrid and electric engines, so the diesel haters should be happy. Kuga's never really done it for me. Some of them have been okay. They just don't seem to be modern enough somehow or another. I'm not too sure. If their hybrid system is the same as the Ford Mondeo hybrid system, it's going to be just ordinary. If their electric version is, because I've never driven a Ford electric car, anything. So no one has, because they haven't had one before. So we're all waiting with bated breath to see how that's going to turn out for the electric car. And hopefully it will actually turn out well for them. But I'm not sure. It's very hard to say what Ford are doing at the moment. They seem to be making ferocious cutbacks left, right and centre. So I'm not too sure how they're going to turn that out. And hopefully they'll come true in the end. But we'll see. They're still getting rid of people. Brian Morrissey says that's literally car theft. Someone stole a car from a dealer. If I stole a Kit Kat from a Spar, the guards wouldn't call it a civil matter. You see, this is what I'm talking about. See, the guards will always say that's a civil matter. You can't get involved in that. But actually, that's just so they don't have to do the paperwork, quite literally. But if you've started a court case and the solicitor is involved, then you've done the right thing, really. You've done the way it should be done. You're trying to go about it the right way. But it doesn't... next year, you will have a great story. Next year, you will sit back and go, wow, do you remember what happened to us last year? Do you remember that guy that stole the car? I know it sounds little comfort right now this minute, but it will be something you look back at in the future and have a great story for your kids and stuff. But it is a massive lesson for everybody to learn. Please, God, do your due diligence. What the best thing out of that would have been to give a deposit by bank transfer and bring in the rest in cash or a check or something physically there and then. But it is the responsibility of the dealership, as far as I can see, from your story. I've only got one side of the story, but from your story, it's the dealer's fault for giving out the car to someone who is not the person who paid for it. If your wife didn't drive it out and your wife is the one who made the payment through bank transfer, then really it should have been given out to your wife. Not even you should have taken it away. Just me, but maybe I'm crazy. Annie McPhee says Tom Satnav giveaway coming up. It's a really good Satnav. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a really good joke. It's actually very, very good. But like cameras, people ask me what the best camera is. The best camera is the camera you have with you. The best Satnav you have is the Satnav you have with you in your pocket. They're the best Satnavs. So, and when I open my phone, first thing I see is a picture of myself, which is it's my icon. Now my icon. It was taken by Melanie McCourt, actually, from Jaguar Land Rover in Athens while I was standing on a plinth. But up here in the top corner for my travel yokes, you can see all my little travel apps where I have, Dublin Airport and Google Maps and Apple Maps and Aer Lingus and Ryanair and Flight Radar and Lufthansa and all these places that I go regularly. I'm always away somewhere with somebody. So you see they're all sitting there, and that's when you want SatNav, and I'm in the middle of Croatia and I want to get to somewhere. It's the SatNav I have with me is the one I'm going to work with. So that's why, that would be the only reason I suppose that TomTom would come apart on you. But if I was travelling a long way, so if I was driving from here to Galway and I was going to a particular address in Galway, I wouldn't actually want my phone plugged in the whole time feeding me SatNav, because it overcharges you. I was charged up to 100% and all that sort of stuff. That's a difficult one. So that's where it might win. But we'll see. I'll put up a video of it. I filmed some of the unboxing and first turn-ons and software updates and things are all filmed. I'm going to film some... I'm going to give it some tricky destinations to do in Ireland and try that out. And if it works out, it'll be fine. It depends on the price of it as well, of course. Check that out. Tommy Flynn says, looking for a family car, reliable, able to fit 3 kids, big boot, not a people carrier, budget of 10 grand, something nice to look at and drives well. Reliability is the key. You'd have to, there's any amount out there that will do that. Now, 3 seats, fitting 3 kids that are just sitting in the back with no child seats, that's easy. Any car will do that one. But fitting 3 kids who are even sitting on the kind of booster seat ones can often be a problem, because the booster seats won't fit right next to one another in a good few cars. If you're looking at right now, 10 grand is not going to get you a lot of car. You're going to have to search hard and dig deep to try and find that car you're looking for. I would suggest go for a Volkswagen Golf 5-door hatchback. There is 3 seats at the back of that. Or Skoda Superb or Skoda Octavia, particularly. If you can get an Octavia Estate for under 10 grand, you'll be doing pretty well, but you get a good car out of that one, that would be no problem. They're all reliable. Reliability is all about, barring recalls and manufacturer defects, Reliability is all about the condition of the car and how well it's been looked after. If it's been looked after, it'll be reliable. My car has been looked after for the last 13 years and never missed a beat. But I know other Say It Leon owners who have said, you know what, my ox broke down every 10 minutes. So it's just, and you go, have you serviced it? And you go, nah, I don't service that till it breaks down. So they only bring it into the garage when nothing's wrong with it. So that's a problem. Just be aware that that's what reliability is all about. So reliability is a very subjective matter. It depends on how you approach it and what kind of history the car has. But they'd be a good couple of recommendations. A couple of other cars, there'll be loads of other cars out there that size. Mazda 6 would be another good one with 3 full seats across the back. Not a people car, you say. You could go a small SUV like the Ford Kuga or Tiguan if you find the older ones that are there. Just your budget of 10 grand is a bit tight on those ones. Luke Kremen says he had a look on Google reviews. They had a 2 1-star ratings in the last week. Surprised you got any ratings at all if that's the case. They won't be open very long, so you have to move fast on that one, to be honest with you. All about the case, really crappy deal. Yeah, it is. Lots of best of looks going to Luke Kremen there. Biscotta, now I know, but if he sorry, they're talking amongst themselves. People are talking amongst themselves. I just give them a little scan to make sure no one's going mad there. Luke Kremen says, Amanda Christina, avoid at all costs. Horrific sales tax is being used here. Never the car you want available, even though the car is sitting outside and still online. Pat O'Reilly says, Bob, is it possible to change registration of an Irish vehicle and it for it to remain in the country? And it remain. I don't. You can deregister a car, but I think that's only after it's first registered, as far as I know. You can apply for registration plates as long as you have a VIN number. So if you're a dealership, say for instance, and you know the VIN numbers of the cars that are on the way to you from Germany or wherever you're getting your cars from, you can register the VIN numbers with the revenue. So you can do that and get your number plate, and when the car gets here you can deregister it and get a different number plate should you want to. But as far as I know, once it goes to an owner, I think you're stuck with the reg plate you got. I don't think we do anything else with reg plates. I think the same reg plate has to stick with the same VIN number for its lifetime, as far as I know. Could be wrong on that one, but I don't think so. Unless you're exporting, of course, then it gets deregged. There's Luke. After the fact, Luke has done a few checks and things on themselves on 7seater.ie. Now, this is all allegedly, so I'm not saying 7seater.ie did anything wrong here or has done anything wrong here. We don't know the full story. We're only getting one side of it here, but still, it makes it interesting reading. He says he ran a track on a registration of the car that he doesn't have, and it's been a hire car and was crashed in the UK and was written off. Tires were worn out. Advertised as having alloys, and it didn't. Wow, scary stuff, alright. And the car is still for sale on the website. How dodgy is that? Even though the car has been stolen, seemingly. Garrett Talbot says, hey Bob, advise your users to look up car recalls before they buy a car. Lost Toyota RS 1.4 D4D due to engine failure. Tow guy told me to check for recalls. 5 recalls not done by car on Toyota. Yeah, you see, problem is, particular car companies, so Ford and Toyota and Volkswagen now have always had the same problem. They have so many cars that are still on the road over the years. When they have a recall, they recall them all, but it doesn't mean that they know where all of them are. Some of the cars end up in backyards or hanging about houses or stuff, and guys just don't hear about the recall. They don't come in, nothing ever happens with them. They're just left out there forever. So it is a good idea to check with a dealership to make sure, give them the reg plate. They can tell from a reg plate. So just give them the reg plate and make sure all of the recalls have been done in that car if you're thinking about buying it. And if not, why not? Because recalls are free. So I always want to check why they're not being done. But get the recalls done because they're manufacturer warranty stuff, and have it checked out. But there's an experience of Garrett there who ended up in trouble because it wasn't done properly. Oh, he has put up the link. Luke Kremen still has the link there for the car that was for sale and is now stolen and gone and can't be gotten back. Sorry. John shows what happens when you look at the Defender will come with 2-litre petrol and diesel engines and a hybrid and starts £35,000. That's true. Time to click make an inquiry to and see what they come back with. Andy's on the case and he's off. Looks like every other Landy. That's what I was saying. Yeah, it does. You should, like I say, it should be drawn of the thing, and it just looks like every other Land Rover that's ever been out there, and the same once again. I'm not too sure why they actually stopped making the Defender. I know people weren't buying it. All I asked them was, do I have to drive like this now? Because my elbow has to be in the car. There's nowhere to put your elbow in a Land Rover Defender. That's why all of them have burnt arms in the summer, because they have to open the window to drive their window out the whole time. Some dealers leave sold cars online to help draw in prospective customers. That's true. Who says, sorry, it's just soap, but we also have worth seeing what response are required to use. I reckon I sold it twice and they're hoping to fob it off Luke by denying everything and then disappearing. That's what I would be afraid of right now, Luke, is to make sure that this is very carefully done and all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted on it, because what I feel right now is if you're in a situation where they've done that to you, they may have done that to multiple other people. They're going to let it build up a little bit and then it'll just vanish. One evening. They just won't be there. And believe it or not, as much of a bricks and mortar place it might look when you're driving by it, you look at it, you see it and stuff, it literally takes an afternoon to clear out a dealership and walk away. So make sure this is being checked very, very carefully. You see, Rogue Trader says to Brian Morrissey, we don't have any of these investigative road traders in this country checking on this sort of stuff and this kind of behaviour. And so it's very easy for a company to go to float itself, start trading, taking money in, selling cars and yada, yada, yada. And then all of a sudden they go out of business, they declare themselves bankrupt and that's the end of it. And they just walk away scot-free. It happens, and 5 years later they can open another dealership and do it again. Or the second person opens the dealership tomorrow and does it immediately. Dominic Gavin says, Opel Mariva will fit 3 in the back, plenty of room, unique doors too. They're the ones that open the wrong way. You know, BMW could learn a lot from Opel. That's a good point, Dominic Gavin. I forgot about the Opel Mariva. The doors open the opposite direction, so they open like suicide doors. But you don't have to open the front doors, open the back doors. Just thought BMW might like to learn that one from the i3. John says, lucky when we bought our first car before it left the showroom, we found it out back in their makeshift garage jacked up. My brother, a mechanic, and found a hole in the gearbox. Oh yeah, not like an old hole down the gearbox to make sure things don't work. Brian Morris says, I saw Scotty Kilmer recently that Subaru have had millions of recalls in the last few years. Recalls aren't a bad thing, right? So recalls aren't always the worst news you can ever have in your life, because it means that a company is admitting liability. It's the companies who don't recall, and the ones with the least amount of recalls are the ones you kind of have to worry about, because maybe they're in a position where it would be better to let the car die and cheaper to let it die out there than to recall it. That sometimes happens as well. That has happened over the generations of cars. You'll find out there over the years that people have put cars together, put them out there. They found a fatal flaw in the car and they went, you know what, we just paid a lawsuit when it comes in. It's cheaper than to recall all these cars, and just let it happen. So recalls are just one of the bits of evidence that would help you find out whether a car is good or not. I still have a sore throat. That's why my voice is so gravelly. Heathen tried to say I would have to default on. Oh yeah, he did. He then tried to say Heathen tried to say default on the admin fee after arguing for an hour. Threatened to burn his garage down. I don't normally believe in threatening behaviour, but push my buttons far. He got my money back in the end. Generally speaking, right? So if you're buying a car, first of all, buy from somewhere that has been around for a few years, right? I know I hate to do this to other people, but generally speaking, a dealership that's been around for the last 30 years isn't going to drop out of business or existence tomorrow without due recourse. The SIMI membership is entirely useless to you. Honest to God, it means absolutely nothing. It is basically a lobbyist body for the car industry on the government site. All you do is pay the fee and you get your SIMI sticker in the window. And if you're taking over a pre-existing garage, so if I bought a garage tomorrow and I bought into the shares of a garage, our garage was closed 10 years ago, and it had a sticker on the window and it says SIMI on it, it's still there when it opens. Sure, it means nothing at all. So don't think that the SIMI is any sort of registered body that's doing any protection for you. They don't protect you, they protect the car industry. So don't go on them. Go on the advice of the people around you. Check to make sure that other people have bought cars there and you've had a good experience or a bad experience. But if you go with someone like Michael Moore Car Sales out the road, it's been there since 1972. 47 years they've been in business. You go and buy a car there, it'll be still a difficult transaction. They're not going to do you any big favours on it, but at the same time, you're still going to be in a position whereby you can have some recourse with them and get something done, you know. So they're the important factors. JV says, got a friend who got a Dacia Logi because he couldn't find anything else with that kind of space for his budget. In fairness, for the money, Dacia Logi is actually very spacious and roomy, and I was going to say nice, but it's not nice, but it's very spacious and roomy. It does a particular job. It's a big car for little money. And it's kind of where cars used to be when I was growing up. It's like a car from 30 years ago with all modern parts in it. And so it does a perfectly good job, no problem. But like, it's not an enthusiast car. You're not going to drive it because you like cars, because you love cars. You're not going to drive it because you want a car that you can race on the back roads on Saturday night. You want to be fairly brave to race one of them works now. But still, it does a particular kind of job. So does the Dacia Sandero, so does the Duster. They all do a particular kind of job, and it's a necessary job, because you know what? Cars are not getting any bloody cheaper, and it's nice to see someone do something about the price of cars like Dacia has done over the last few years. And so a good old Romanian company. I was in Romania last year with Mazda. It was a lovely little trip. I really like that country. Very friendly people. Really kind of fell in love a little bit with Romania. So if you're from Romania, you've got a good country. John M says, do you think the Skoda Scala will be in genuine rival to the Golf? Or do you see it being in the VW background like the Seat Leon, with the Golf still being top dog? The Golf will definitely be top dog. Skoda and Seat will not be allowed to outsell or outperform the Volkswagen group in any way, shape or form. So even though Skoda sales have improved, Seat sales have improved, they've improved in the ways that they want them to improve, not in the ways that they'd like them to improve. So it's very important to Skoda to have a car that sells well, like the Scala. But don't forget, the new Octavia is coming, which I've seen a picture of, and it doesn't look great. But anyway, new Octavia is on the way. There will be a new Superb coming out 2 years, is it, or next year? I can't remember if it's 2 or next year, one or the other. So there's a lot going on in that group, but it'll be down to the badge. It'll be down to which way it is. The underpinnings for the Scala come from the Polo, and so it's not for the Golf. The Golf 7 will have the newer, or the Golf 8 will have the newer chassis on it, but it'll be extended, a longer chassis, and should be stiffer, because the Golf tends to be a little bit stiffer of a car. So it should be different. But if the renders or the pictures that I've seen of the Golf so far are the one they're actually going to make, you're kind of going, wow, that doesn't look great, does it? Brian Morris said, good point. He mentioned another company that didn't recall cars in the States and were being recalled in Europe. They just said, yeah, exactly that. That's what they do. So sometimes having hundreds of recalls is a good thing, because the car company's going, let's fix all of those problems, and then we get cars back on the road. Some car companies who don't have any recalls at all are just going, well, you know what, sure, let it happen. If it breaks down, they'll just buy another car. I don't know what Lee Collins, Copenhagen. What is your meaning about the rise in road rage? Thanks. Who's Lee Collins? Did I miss one? Did I miss anybody there? No, I didn't miss anybody right now. No idea. Rising Road Rage, no idea. Luke Kremen, I can't find anything on Solo Check about 7seater.ie. Liam Cotter, what do you think of Al Hayes Motors? Al Hayes has been around for years, making trouble for years and years and years. Bully in the market. There's nothing wrong with that. That's business. That's the way business works. They're sharp practice. All car dealerships tend to be sharp practice, but Al Hayes tends to do it right in your face. Sharp practice. So, but it has been doing the import stuff for years, and has been trying to become main dealers for years. They've made a name for themselves over the years, and have survived pretty well. So they got a good team running on. They're still there. They're still in existence. So I have no problem with them. They're around good 20 years this stage. I'd say is it 20, maybe 15, 20 years, something like that. So yeah, no problem with Al Hayes as things go. Just all dealerships are pretty sharp most of the time. If they wouldn't be in business if they weren't sharp, because you have to be sharp as a car dealer. You have to be. It is a savage trade. It's a savage trade. Within the VAG group itself, they don't tend to create a direct rival to a long-standing flagship. The Scala versus the Golf to me looks more of giving a wider option in that segment to keep the sales vague. This is true. And then if you buy a Skoda, I already got a comment on my Skoda video about saying Skoda as Skoda, not Skoda. You should say Skoda. But anyway, The Scala, it fits in a certain area. It's quite a bit. It's a bigger car than it looks. Even in the video, it looks like a 5-door hatch, but I actually think it'd probably be slightly bigger than a Golf. And it's a good car. I've no doubt it's a good car. But the cars we tested overseas have all got that optional kind of sports chassis in it. The ones we're going to get in Ireland won't have that sports chassis. I bet you. You'll be able to spec it, but it's not going to be in there for standard. So it'll probably drive a little bit different over here than it does over there. So just bear that in mind. It's probably not going to be exactly the same car. But it is nice to see my little video get over 100,000 views on it in like less than or nearly a week. You know, it got. I think I remember texting a PR guy from Volkswagen, Paddy. I said I think that video seems to be doing really well, and the numbers were like, I think it's got 6,000 views or something. I mean, there's something wrong. Maybe that just hold fire in case that Volkswagen video, or that video isn't doing well, or YouTube is not doing well really, or something is wrong. But actually, it's just ticked away there on its lonesome, so it's doing nicely. Brian Morrissey, is it Renault that owns Dacia? Yes, it is. The Renault Group owns a Dacia Group. Renault part owns Nissan as well, and so the Renault-Nissan alliance. Nissan was just about out of business when Renault stepped in and gave them a shed load of cash to get them right. And now Carlos Ghosn has been going over there and taking all the money, or whatever he's doing. But yeah, Renault does own Dacia as well. Dacia was long established in Romanian circuits for a long time, and the Renault Dacia thing has been going on a long, long time. You can actually see Dacia cars like the Renault 12 was a Dacia something else, and every once in a while over in Spain you'll see a Dacia which is a Renault in all intents and purposes. Everything just on the front it just says Dacia. That's the only difference. Just going to check because I think that's a message from somebody on Instagram. Yes, it is. Just in case one of you lads look for me somewhere else. No, you're not. But you can follow me on Instagram. I am there as Bob Flavin. I am on Twitter as Bob Flavin. I am here, of course. You can follow me here too. Instagram is good if you want to see the Instagram stories of the travel stuff I do. I actually do another channel called Bob Daily. Nobody subscribes to that because I don't tell anyone about it. It's where I just I get my Instagram stories, I download them, and then I just re-upload them onto that to keep them from being disappeared over time. But it'd be lovely if you could support the channel. It'd be brilliant. I know it's a tough thing to do, but it'd be great if you could support the channel in some way. You will find a link to the PayPal down below, or you go to paypal.com, and my email address is bobflav@thenextgear.com. You can do Patreon, which is there as well, for drip feed. It'd be really wonderful if you could. You could buy a t-shirt if you want as well. There's some t-shirts down there as well. I don't control the price of them. They just get done. So the price of them is nothing to do with me. I don't know how much they are. Or you can use Super Chat right here on YouTube. Just click the little dollar sign below the chat and you'll see that that's Super Chat. You can put money in there either. It'd be brilliant if you could. I'd love it if you could. Luke Kremen seems to have dug a bigger hole for himself as it goes on here. They're all Eastern European from Bulgaria. Luke, my problem is, if you'd have done all this due diligence to begin with, no money would have transferred hands, you know. So you do have to take some responsibility of handing over cash to people without actually being in the building or even seeing a car, or, you know, they're all Eastern European, all from Bulgaria. It's a company just brand new, something for starting out and all sorts of things. All that needs to be done before money changes hands. Like, you're not going to go to a petrol station, have a look at a car, go, that's a nice car, it's great, your man goes 16 grand, you go, right, I'm going to send you that, yeah. And then you all go home and send him 16 grand, then turn up at the petrol station the next day and he's not there, and expect it all to have happened. Just because someone's in a bricks and mortar, it's a massive amount of money that's been pushed out. So be really careful when you do that. However you do it, however you get there, always do your due diligence on the person you're doing business with. Make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into and how you get out of it as well. It's vitally important so you don't end up being stung. And I know it's really, really bad now. You're looking at it and go, God, I've been done here, one way or the other. But if you'd have done all the research you're doing today, 2 weeks before you bought the car, you would have never spent money on it. You just would have walked away and went, no, these guys look dodgy. But at the same time, I don't know if they're dodgy or not. They might be the nicest guys in the entire world. I know nothing at all about them other than the website I've been given and what Luke has told us here. So just bear that in mind. I'm not trying to do anybody down here, but it is an open forum and allows people to be able to say whatever they want to say. And if there's a court case about it, don't bias the court case by telling us much more. Liam Cotter, Dacia is everything left over from Renault. Actually, it's the generation before is what they actually do. So the Renault Clio from 5 years ago is 5-6 years ago even is the Dacia Sandero, basically underneath. I mean, the engines and the clutch, gearbox, chassis, all that sort of stuff. So it's the kind of previous generation spare parts from the last Renaults that go into the Dacias. No bad thing. These cars were all good. Yeah. Brian Morrissey, great channel, Bob. I'm involved with channel myself, doing some live stuff, so I know how much goes into it and do it really well. Thanks, helpful too. No problem at all, Brian. Anytime. Oh yeah, Luke Kremen says, thanks guys. I warned the wife I wasn't sure about the place, but she loved the car and paid the transfer. She will be forever annoyed by that, I'm sure. King says, hi Bob, how can a new fuel powered Kona be £22,000 euro and a new electric Kona be 32,000? Approximately. Crazy. Thanks, Carl. Actually the price of that Kona is 49,000. By the time you take your discounts and you get your grants and all that stuff from the government, it brings the price down closer to the 32 mark. But actually it's more like 49,000 euro when you buy them straight with no grants on them. So the difference is gigantic. There's a number of reasons behind it. One of them is there's completely different chassis tech and all that sort of stuff underneath, and the engines and all are changed out, and batteries are really expensive. And the second one is because they decide, you know what, we're just going to charge a surcharge because people who buy electric cars will spend more money on them. And that's really what it comes down to. And they'll never see you again. So you won't come in for your yearly service to get your spark plugs changed because there isn't any, and you won't get your wet bits done, oil change. There's no oil in it either. So the only thing you get done is brakes and suspension and wipers and things, but that's about it. So it does make a bit of a difference in that price, but also it's mainly the surcharge that comes down on top of it because they feel like charging even more. Bob O'Driscoll says, hey Bob, no problem at all, good to have you. Dan Hutton, my Mazda 6 has no power. Garage can't find anything wrong with it. I love when a garage can't find anything wrong with it and yet it doesn't work. All checked out okay, it was lost 40% was power. Any advice? Now you're talking about your horsepower or you're talking about electric power. So I love when a garage says like, there's nothing wrong with that. I can't find anything wrong with that. So there's obviously nothing wrong with that, right? And the owner's going, no, there's definitely something wrong with that. I love that conversation. It's always funny when the garage is right, the owner is right, but nobody can figure out what's actually wrong with the car. So if you're losing your power, it's probably down, horsepower to the car, it's down to compression. That's generally speaking what happens inside a car. So to get horsepower in a car, sit down, ladies and gentlemen and girls and boys, here's a little lesson for you. So to get horsepower in a car, it's about compression. That is the piston inside the cylinder. When it comes up and it compresses the petrol inside, the little bit of petrol or diesel, doesn't matter what it is, when it compresses it up, the more compression you get, the more horsepower you get from a smaller engine, right? And that's called an interference engine. So that's an engine that if something goes wrong and a piston can go bang into the top of the cylinder and it shoves the engine out to the top. That's a high compression power, generally coming from something like Honda or Mazda. They do those high compression cars. Volkswagen did them as well. Mercedes did them as well, the AMG range, and BMW with the M series. They do high compression engines, so the engine compresses to the tiniest amount, then the explosion happens and it drives the cylinder back down again, and you get horsepower driving that drive shaft back and forward. When something goes wrong in another one called a non-interference engine, that would be a Toyota engine. They do non-interference. What they do is they don't do high compression. They make the piston go up to here. That's as much as their compression goes. They make the explosion and come back down. When something goes wrong, the piston can only go to there, and then it stops. You don't get a piston banging off the top of the cylinder. That's a non-interference engine. Now, when compression is down, so when the car can't compress that enough, you don't get as much power. So the explosion isn't as powerful because the compression won't go all the way up. There's a number of factors behind that. So ECU would be number one. It's the first thing I'd do is start really delving deep into ECU and have a look for errors in there. And you're looking for sparking errors, so the spark isn't going off at the right time, the engine isn't compressing hard enough, or the air filter is blocked. That would be another thing. Also, the exhaust system could be blocked. There's a number of checks you have to go through here. So generally, a car needs the four points of A 4-stroke engine needs the 4 points. I was going to say suck, bang, blow and all that sort of thing, but it needs the 4 points to go through, so the car breathes every time it comes through the air from the outside. It compresses inside and then exhausts the whole lot back out again. It's one of those is down on power. Now maybe the injectors, I would check the injectors, be a good one. I'd check the air filter for another one. There's a number of good checks to go through there for Dan, but there's an absolute jock load to be done. There certainly is something wrong with it. The garage can't find it. The garage just is dim-witted and isn't smart enough to find it. They're not a good enough garage to find it. If I can sit here on the internet and know it's just a Mazda 6 and already know what's wrong with it, I can tell you what's wrong with it. But that's as far as it goes. It doesn't really take that long to find out what's wrong, but finding the thing that's wrong and fixing the thing that's wrong could take a hell of a long time. You're talking about a day's worth of checks there. If it doesn't turn up in the first ECU run, it's going to be a day's worth of checks. You're going to have to check the compression, take off cylinder heads, take off all sorts of stuff, put your hand over the top, try and get it to suck air down. It's a pain in the hole to find, but it is definitely down to compression or a sparking problem or a breathing problem. So either the air's not going in or going out at the right speed, and the car can't breathe, so it feels like the power is after dropping off. Another thing might be worth checking is just change out the spark plugs. Take out the air filter, start it up, have a drive around. The air filter just filters out a little bit of dust. Won't do any difference for run that without an air filter for 15 minutes. It'll be fine. Hope that helps you, by the way, Dan, with any luck. Luke Kremen is still doing his searches there. You can place a deposit by PayPal? Yeah. PayPal is just another version of a bank, just not bricks and mortar. I take PayPal. If you want to give me PayPal, it's fine. Gutted for Luke's wife taking advantage like this. A simple alarm for anyone in the future with no reputable dealer would insist on full payment to hold tax and non-refundable deposits. True. Dan Hatton says it's a 2013 diesel. That's the Mazda. So that's definitely a compression problem there, Dan. If it's a Mazda diesel, it's a compression problem inside. The car has either got an ECU problem, or your glow plugs aren't doing their job properly, or it's not breathing out properly. It's got to be one of those three, but it's always compression. When horsepower falls away, it is always compression, especially on a young car. If it's an older car, you can get soot and coking and things that will change the compression ratio, but you're still going to be a compression problem inside the engine. I'm surprised the dealers haven't told you that straight away. It's just a compression problem. Possibly 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. It's out of warranties and it's 5 years, I think, on a Mazda. But it is definitely compression ratio effort. Definitely worth hooking it up to a proper Mazda inspector, or at least an ECU sniffer, a real good one that can get through to the big stuff, not the one that just clears an old error in it. One that can actually do the whole system read and do a run through the entire system check. No errors. Depends on what error system is being used there. Danny says no errors, which is strange. It's very strange. There should be an error in the ECU from somewhere else. It's been cleared out from somewhere else. You may have to do checks when it's actually running, which would be part of that as well. Lee says you have a good Easter. I'll have a good Easter. Yeah, that's true. Still going on with 7-seater for Luke Kramer. A bit of detective work has been happening right now. Everyone's trying that. John says, Bob, I've been looking at getting a hot hatch as my next car, looking at a VAG group mainly as a do auto anything to watch out for in DSG. Do they suffer any known faults? The older one did on was it the wet gearbox? Or now it's dry and it was wet back then. There's an older one from 2012 or so that was given errors, the old DSG. And they went from a dry sump to a wet sump. Or they went from a wet sump to a dry sump on the DSG, and then it stopped. It completely gave up giving any of them problems. There's no problem after that. There's no effort really with the DSG. The only thing you got to worry about is when you're buying a hot hatch and it's second hand, you got to wonder about the person who just had it before you. They may have been ragging the hole out that yoke the whole time and then cleaned it up, tried to give it a service, and it's going to sell it to you. So watch out for things at the top end. That's where you got to really watch for stuff. It'll start fine, it'll run fine, it'll pull away fine, the horsepower will be okay. But then when you actually get up into like 6,500 RPMs and you see blue smoke coming out of the back, that's where it starts to tell very quickly that the car's been ragged. Often, most of those cars don't even get warm until they've been out for a good hour, So, the performance one. So be very careful when you're buying something like that you test that end of its market as well. That it is a hot hatch, so it should be able to behave like a hot hatch at speed. Don't do it when it's cold. Don't over rev a car when it's cold. Don't go beyond 3000 RPM when a car is stone cold. Any car, because it does harm. It does. The top half of the piston, the cylinder head won't have gotten its oil yet. It's not lubricated up there properly. So it means you're just going to burn stuff. There it is. So Eric Washer points out the old dry clutch had trouble. Fix it around 2012. That's exactly. So after 2012 you should be okay with DSG. Just watch, make sure that it's not the dry clutch, the wet clutch that you're looking for. They swapped it out and they made a better car entirely of it, and it's been 100% since then. It does feel somewhat like changing a PlayStation game though, but DSG is probably the best of the lot. Even still, DSG would be pretty good. Power Shift was really good in Ford Focus as well. Focus RS with a Power Shift is actually a great car to drive. I'm still looking through. Solid Motors is the name of the company, by the way. That is 7seater.ie. If anyone's wondering if we're still doing our detective work, or to try and find out what's going on here with 7seater.ie. If anyone hasn't come in so far and wonder what that is Luke Kremen, his wife paid for a car before it was picked up from 7seater.ie, and when they got there they were told the car was already gone and had been collected on that day, and so they're down €16,000 and they're also down the car. So this is all allegedly, of course. This is not, I can't say one way or the other whether this is actually after happening. I only have Luke Kremen's word to work on. The website looks very professional, in fairness to it. But anyway, we will check out that later on, and I will try and update us before next week, Luke, as to what happens with that. But definitely it's the court case for that end. But you're really going to have to push hard on that and try and get it done, and work hard to get this up and running very quickly as well, because the chances are, if there's more like you, if this happened before, or they've done it a few times, or they've sold that car 10 or 15 times, they're just going to shut down and be gone. All of a sudden they just won't be there. So just bear that in mind, that these people do come and go very quickly. It does happen in Ireland. I know people doesn't think it does happen in Ireland. It does happen in Ireland. Do your due diligence when you're buying your cars. Know who you're buying it from. Check out with your friends. Do some social media searches. Make sure they are who they say they are, and that they've got a good company name. And then, and only then, do you pay a deposit. A deposit should be no more than 10% of the full value of the car, just to hold the car. No more than 10%. Preferably €500. Seriously, €500 shows you're interested, right? It really does. So putting €500 down the table, you should be done. And hopefully we'll get some information back from Luke about a good news that we might actually find his bleeding car as well. It'd be handy. Andy McAfee has given us more information there on the abandoned units that are out there, solid seaters. He's doing some checks as well, so we're all on the case. A little bit of detective work's happening. When will you be reviewing the RAV4? I am, Matthew, working with the lovely Sinead McCann on Cars Ireland. We are going to do a dual test of the RAV4 versus the Honda, the hybrid Honda. What's the hybrid Honda? What's the CRV? CRV is it called? I'm not good with those little acronym things. So we are going to do a dual test, one against the other, myself and Jim McCann, but I don't think that's until June. So I'm very booked up at the moment. But I have driven the RAV4. It's substantially bigger than the outgoing RAV4. It's now a big car. But hybrid wise, I haven't tested fuel economy. Interior is quite nice. The car looks pretty good from the outside. Good competition for that would be the Seat Tarraco. If you don't fancy going hybrid, Tarraco is a nice car. I have that in a few weeks' time. That's a really good car. I kind of have a soft spot for the old Tarraco, to be honest with you. John come up with a suggestion there for Dan Hatton. If the fuel pump is on the way out, that's also a possibility. Little bit less of a possibility, I suppose, because the car would make backfiring. You know, there'd be other weird crap going on with the car as well. Wouldn't just be down on power. It would be like stopping and starting regularly, cutting out and stuff if there wasn't enough fuel. But it's worth checking. It's definitely in the fuel or breathing system somewhere, and the compression ratio would be a big thing I'd be looking at for sure, man. Amin says for most people it's worth to have lower rolling resistance this time for better MPG when it's increased the braking distance and probably of an accident. Is it worth it to have the lower? Yes, it is. If you want really high MPG, there's a number of ways of doing it, right? You want really, really good MPGs. You want to make the most amount of fuel. Lower rolling resistance of your tires, pumped up as hard as they can possibly go, and then make sure there's nothing in the car that doesn't have to be in the car. So weight is always a factor. Take it all out. Take everything out of the boot, jackets, pants, shoes, kids, everything out of the car, and you'll get better fuel economy, 100%. You lose all comfort, but you get better fuel economy. Now, lower rolling resistance means worse braking, so you're really going to have to predict everything about you. You will have trouble stopping anywhere. But at the same time, you look at Toyota Prius, very low resistance tires, and they end up not being in that too many accidents. So it should be okay. But yeah, you can save quite a bit of money from having lower resistance tires on your car and having very hard pumped up. Be careful to get out hard pumped up. Don't pump over pump it, it's going to hurt you. Okay, we now know this and feel really stupid. Sorry, Luke. I know we don't try to make it feel really stupid. It's just to make sure that no one else does this as well. And it's not just from one motor company. There's multiple motor companies out there who do some stupid crap and always try and catch people out. So hopefully it'll all work out for you in the end. It really will. I hope you get your money back, or you get your car, or you get a resolution. It's the most important part. Don't worry. Just work through the system step by step. Don't let it keep you awake at night time. It's only money. It's only a car. I know it's a big stressor in your head right now this minute, but you will get through this. And at the other end of this, you'll be stronger and you'll know exactly what you're doing in the future, and you'll have learned something. That's the most important part. That's what life is all about. As Annie McPhee says, we all live and learn, Luke. Don't be too hard rubbing it in on a lady in your life now. Blame lies with the scammers taking advantage. Yes, because they know exactly how to take advantage of these sort of things. These happen all the time. People sell their cars on done deal. They're told to meet the people on some petrol station or other in the back road or some thing. They turn up and the guys just steal the car on them. Or the vice versa. The car's for sale. Someone turns up with €4,000 in their pocket and they're held at gunpoint and the money's taken from them and they drive off. They know exactly. We're very trusting in this country. Irish people are very trusting in general. So we know exactly how it runs. It happens quite regularly. John M says, what do you think of SsangYong's? They seem to be powerful for towing, but only thing that puts me off is the tax emissions and safety side of things. Safety, they're not too bad. They're alright, 3 to 4 stars. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. I mean, the what car was in the other day? It's only a 4-star. Oh yeah, the Peugeot. What's it called? Rifter. That's 4-star car. So they're not alone, and that's a French car, which is usually the best ones. They're usually 5 stars, nearly all of them. SsangYongs are good, reliable engines. They take a lot of their equipment from Mercedes, so they get a lot of their stuff out of there. They take a lot of their engines from Mercedes as well, actually. So they'll be reliable. They'll work pretty hard. Now, they don't look the greatest, but they're going to be reliable. They will go up and down every single mountain in the world. They are a very popular car in Southeast Asia. Just wouldn't be very popular over here. And Harris Group took in SsangYong into this country again. Now they've been taken over by the nephew of Pino Harris right now, so they do have an outlet. There will be more coming on this year of SsangYong, so we'll be starting to review them again. If anybody puts me in a Rex, then I'm just going to, I don't know, put on a mask or something, drive around like that. They don't look great, but they make some really good cars. I kind of have a soft spot for car companies like that, because they just go ahead and make their own thing. They don't care about what anyone else thinks of them. They just do it. That's the best way of it, so it works that way. So we have come to the time where it's the time to end our time together, which has been a lovely time for all of us here to do time. But hopefully you've enjoyed today's Sunday service. I will be back next week as per plan, unless something goes really wrong between now and then. And hopefully I will be well by then. Over the next coming week, I will be putting out Instagram posts. You want to follow me on Instagram? Of the Jaguar I-Pace and the Peugeot 508 will be going out as well. And I'll be putting out videos this week, 3 or 4 videos this week probably, of various things coming up. So there'll be a few videos out. The new Volkswagen Golf with the petrol engine in it, and a few other bits and pieces that are coming up. Hopefully you will enjoy me here on this channel and subscribe. If you can support this channel in some way, it'll be absolutely phenomenal. If you can support the channel in some way, that'd be great. There are links for PayPal and Patreon and Super Chat here on the channel as well. And you will be able to see me very soon on Midlands 103 as well, if you want to get me there, or with Paul McGann over in his place in Monstreven. He's a barber, a master barber, so you'll catch him there too. And I have to go and get a haircut, Paul. You put on a haircut. Look at me hair, look, it's just growing sideways on the side of my head. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed today's show, and we will see you next Sunday. But until the next time, I will see you on the far side.